Plug in, log on, let's break it down. Truth ain't scared to be found. Dogma shakes when questions rise. No more fear, no more lies. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Sacred text, twisted views. Time to separate lies from truth. Not here to burn, but here to see what survives when the mind breaks free. Deconstruct, analyze, open hearts, open eyes. If it falls, let it be. What remains is meant to be. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Not for hate, but for the wise. Truth won't shatter, only lies. Time to start the conversation. Now ain't the time to pretend nothing happened.
Welcome in, everybody. How is everybody doing? Just making sure we can still see. And holy Moses, I need to fix my camera real quick. We gotta fix this filter real fast. It is a bit in. Woo. Let me get this filter fixed. It is a bit intense right now. And man, sometimes trying to get this filter just right is a pain. It's a pain sometimes. Like getting it just right. You know what? We're just gonna have to deal with that. But how's everybody doing? Tonight's topic is, why is God a sick fuck? If you disagree, hop in the box. I would love to chat with you. We're going to be talking about all the gods. So if you disagree, hop on in. Love to chat with you. If you are over on YouTube, again, type in the link, tinyurl.com/cd-guest. Burns, what do you mean YouTube's having server issues? If you guys are having a hard time hearing me, let me know over on YouTube. Hopefully you all can hear me. But we are live here, ready to go. And I'm going to run a sound real quick. I just want to make sure everybody can hear the sound, so I'm going to play a little grr. Let me know if you can hear it. So if you heard the finally, let me know. If you heard it, let me know. So they heard it on TikTok. Just want to know if it got heard on. Okay, audio's good. We're good. So yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about why is God a sick monster? Hop on up. Let's talk about it. I'm also going to try something else here to hopefully prevent some double feedback. So I went ahead and muted something here. Just let me know if you can still hear me on both of them. I want to make sure I can still hear you good. But yeah, let's see if we get some people coming on in. I also dropped the flames on the bottom. I dropped them because they might be adding too much CPU usage for my little laptop. So I went ahead and dropped them. So hopefully I can get better response time from my laptop when messing with TikTok Live Studio, because Live Studio is already finicky enough as it is. Hey, over on TikTok, I am almost to 9,000 followers on TikTok, almost to 9,000. If you're not following me already, if you could go give me a follow, it would mean so much to me to reach that 10,000. That's my goal, is to reach 10,000. So let's go ahead, and if you're not following me, give me a follow. If you're on YouTube and you have a TikTok, same name, Cyber Deconstruction, go give me a follow over there. I'd greatly appreciate it. And yeah, right now we'll just be waiting to see if we get some people come in. Let's crowdfund Cyber a PC. I'm actually so just so you know, when it comes to the YouTube side of things through ad revenue and all of that, that is the goal, is to save that for a PC. So that's where all the YouTube stuff's going, and some of the TikTok is going to that as well, is to get a new PC. And then my current laptop, I will probably Timble, I have admitted morals are objective. I have admitted it. I believe morals are objective, but I ground it in empathy. I ground it in empathy. Hold on, Timble. I actually want to bring Timble up. I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard Timble, but I actually want to bring Timble up because I thought we'd. Empathy isn't subjective. Empathy is objective. And we'll just talk about this. This will be the topic, is just whether or not empathy is objective or subjective. That's what we'll talk about. Yeah, Timble's always, okay, so Timble and I, either the conversation is awesome, I enjoy conversations with Timble, or it kind of goes off the deep end. It's always a journey with Timble. But we all know Timble's thing. And one of the things, Timble, just so you know, and real quick, Timble, can you say something? I just want to make sure everybody can hear you. Can you count to 5 real quick?
Check. Hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can you say something? I just want to make sure everybody can hear you. Can you count to 5 real quick? Okay. Could you guys hear him on TikTok? Could you hear Timble count to 5? Okay, so the setting that I thought would potentially fix something. All right, you guys should be able to hear Timble now. Count to 5 one more time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now that I'm up here, I can kind of hear there's like a slap back delay on your voice. I can hear you twice, kind of super quick, back to back.
Let me take a look at that. Did that fix it? Do you still hear that slap back?
Yep. Nope. That's good for me now.
Okay. So the reason why I base it in empathy is objective is it be through like an evolutionary process. I believe it's transcendental, that empathy is just the ability to be able to look at something from somebody else's situation. And anytime we have any kind of dialectic, if you are being rational, and you're actually trying to see things from my point of view to try to understand my point of view, we intrinsically utilize empathy. And if you're not utilizing empathy and you're willing to ignore an entire side of an argument by not trying to put yourself in their shoes, you're ignoring an entire side of an argument. That makes you irrational. I don't see any way that empathy violates the laws of logic or anything like this. So this is how I state that morality is grounded in empathy.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I guess the first example I would give is take some horrific event such as what happened on September 11th, right? So you and I would both agree that that was a terrible, terrible thing that happened. Based on our empathy, we both think that was horrific. Fill in the blank, like just a terrible thing. Yet, if you were to ask the guy who originated all of that plan, he would say that that was probably the greatest thing himself and his followers ever did. Right.
Well,
so at that point, you would have to be willing to tell him, you are wrong based on your opinions, feelings, thoughts, empathy, and I am right based on my empathy, because I hate that. I hated seeing that. It brought me all these feelings of just terror, you name it. So at point, who's right? If it's based on empathy, one of you has to be right, because you have different feelings.
Well, you're confusing empathy with sympathy, right? Sympathy is different, right? You're utilizing sympathy, right? So the question would be, if we were to have this argument, right, it'd be a case of going into that argument and asking them when they are about to conduct this act. Like, let's say we were on that plane and this is about to happen. We're watching this go down. And we're on that plane and we're able to have a dialectic with this individual, right? The question is it's not only about what you and I are talking to about that individual, but it's this individual also taking into consideration the act or what his act is about to do to not only the people in the buildings, but to their families, what it's about to do to even his own people, right? It's not just attacking like, Americans per se, but it's an attack essentially on the entire world to include his own people. And the question that we would have to have then through having this dialectic is he taking them into consideration? And when we're having this dialectic and he states why he's doing this and how he is taking their argument, their views into consideration, right? Does he convey that back to us? And so as we go back and forth this dialectic, trying to put each other in each other's shoes, only then would we know if he did. But from everything that I've seen from that attack, from 9/11, would show that they acted irrationally, that they didn't take these people into consideration, that it is a case where that organization, I'm not going to say names because of TikTok policies, but because of that organization, where they just want to cause as much harm as they could in that instance, I would say that they didn't utilize empathy, and thus they did act irrationally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but to them, you got to understand, they would, if I were to play devil's advocate and try and answer for one of them, to them, it was not irrational. It's not harmful. It's actually obeying what your God is telling you to do, which is the greatest thing that you could do. So how could you tell one of them who says, Cyber, all I'm doing is what my leader and my God have commanded me to do, which what is greater to do than that? What are you going to respond to that when they say, this is what I'm here for. This is what I was created to do, what I'm commanded to do. What would you respond to?
Yeah, so it'd be a case then, and this is where the religious side of this comes into, right? This is the religious side of this, right? Because when we are in war, right, it's the whole reason why we have like the Geneva Convention is because we try to act out of empathy, right? But when it comes to the religious side of empathy, the question would need to be is when these deities are commanding, it doesn't matter what deity it is. It doesn't matter if it's the Abrahamic deities. It doesn't matter if it's the Greek deities. It doesn't matter if it's the Hindu deities. The deities are irrelevant. But when they are doing these atrocious acts, and again, I'm lumping all deities into this, when they are doing these atrocious acts, right? Are they, because they instilled us with emotions, with feelings, with all of these things, are they taking our argument into consideration when they command or allow for these horrible acts, right? And is a reading of a scripture, right? When we read scripture, is the understanding of a scripture objective or subjective, right? So is it a case of in the Quran when it states in war, right? Are we talking about when like a caliphate is at war, when the entirety of Islam is at war? What does that mean? And when does the reading of scripture become subjective? So just real quick to recap that is, are deities utilizing empathy when they command these horrible things? And if they're not, then I would say that they are acting irrationally as deities. Yeah. The second thing would be is we as humans, when we are reading this text, are we reading it correctly, or are we reading it with sympathy to our own cause, which would be the way we read it, the way we interpret it, the way we translate it would be subjective. And are we then taking action based off of that, thus causing us to ignore the whole other side of an argument?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great and very important question, which I think, I'm going to be more than happy to dive into that. But before that, I would like to know what your simple answer would be to, if you were on that airplane, right, and you got a second to talk with the person who had hijacked it, and they said, Cyber, this is what I think is the right thing to do. This is what my God has told me to do. This is my mission. Why should I not do this? What are you gonna, in 30 seconds that you have, tell that person, this is why you should not do that? What's your response gonna be? Oh yeah, it's just gonna be, take a look at all the people, including your own people that you're on. Have you thought about their arguments? Have you put yourselves in their shoes and realize that if you were in that building right now and you realized that this was going to happen, and let's not even say somebody in the building. They are. They're about to die too. They're about to lose their families and their entire life as well. So yes, they have thought about that. No, they put the hold on. The exact fate that everyone hold on. They have about to reach is their own fate. They are in the same shoes as everyone. They're not, because they are only looking through things again through one argument, that is through a religious lens, right? A religious lens. Subjective. It's all subjective to you. It's all subjective to you. No. Look, hold on. Listen. When we only look through one lens, right? When we only look through that religious lens, right? We are literally ignoring a whole other side to the argument, a whole other side of the argument. That makes it irrational. That is why empathy is grounded. It makes it irrational. Anytime we are in any kind of dialectic, anytime we are trying to make any decision making, and we are ignoring an entire side of an argument, that is being irrational. That's irrationality, right? And so if they're only looking at it through their religious lens, they are ignoring a whole other side of the argument. They are, like, definitionally irrational. Right. Well, for them, in their case, it wouldn't have just been religion, right? It's for their entire society, the people that they've grown up with, the leaders that they follow here on earth, not just God. But is this all, are there leaders in these position of power because of religion? They would probably say so. I would think. So it is strictly from a religious lens. Thus, they are
they are ignoring a whole other side of the argument. So they are still acting irrationally by hijacking that plane and doing what they did on 9/11. It is still, it is still irrational.
But that's my whole point, is that to you it's irrational, but to them it's completely rational, and that's their entire purpose. It's not just rational in this moment, it's to them rational for their entire existence eternally.
Hold on. Is it rational to make a decision making, or to make any decision without listening to other arguments against it?
I would say outside of God, it would be irrational. So
Yeah.
if God were to give a commandment like he did in the Old Testament, right, specifically to a person, then it would be rational for them to follow that commandment without listening to any other human being's input, right? But today, right, assuming, which under my belief, I think you probably know or remember, I believe
Yeah, you're a Calvinist. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the canon to be closed, and God is not necessarily speaking to us outside of Scripture, because I believe Scripture to be complete and everything we need. I would consider a human's words or opinions more so than I would if I were Moses, who was directly hearing from God, if that makes sense. Right?
Well,
not
but
to mean that Scripture is invalid or not important, but I would use that in conjunction with what other people read the Scripture to mean. And
But what I would say, because as a Calvinist, do you believe in sola scriptura as a Calvinist?
yes.
Okay, so I would say, right, the one thing in this argument that I think any Calvinist, like, we try to run this argument against a Calvinist, essentially you could, like, essentially just steamroll and be like, no, God. We have plenty of passages where God knows everything. We have a thing where God, and this is where I'm going to throw Calvinists a bone with this argument. I'm going to give you the defeater to this argument if you're a Calvinist, right? Where you could say, well, no, the Scriptures say that God knew us before we were created, right? God knew us because he knows everything. Thus, God, through knowing us, has already heard our argument. Right? God knows our argument, right? That's a bone for you, right? So any decision that God would make, right, having known our argument, being all knowing, God's already heard the argument. So based on that, any decision, at least the God, that the Calvinist God, based on that, God would already have already known our side of the argument. Thus, God is rational. Now, from that, we go look at Scripture and we find contradictions, and I would punch holes in your belief that God actually is all-knowing, right? But that's not what this conversation about. This conversation is just about whether or not empathy is objective or not. But for your argument, it would just be, hey, God already knows you. He's already heard your argument. Thus, he's justified. And I would actually have to be like, yeah, if it is the case that God truly is all-knowing, I'd have to accept that. Again, that would turn into a different debate on talking about whether or not God actually is all-knowing. And that's why when you and I talk, we normally talk about whether or not God existed or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess on that, what would, once again, to play devil's advocate, because obviously I do not believe this, but if the person who would hijack the plane said to you, Cyber, I've thought about what's going to happen to your family, how you're going to feel about this, how they're going to feel, and I do not care at all. That does not at all change my mind, affect me any way whatsoever, based on my empathy. Then what do you say to them?
Yeah, that is definitionally ignoring the other side of the argument. Definitionally ignoring the other side of the argument. Right, let me give you an example real quick. For an example.
Wait, hold on, because it's not ignoring, because they've said, Cyber, I hear what you're saying. I understand that your entire family is going to be so sad and so heartbroken for the rest of their lives that this has happened. I hear you. I acknowledge what you're saying, but I disagree. I do not care. I do not think that matters ultimately. I have
Yeah,
taken
that's
your.
still.
I have
Yeah,
taken
that's
that into
ignoring it.
consideration. That's not ignoring because I'm
It is. Yeah, they're
acknowledging
completely
it.
dismissing it. Just
Well,
because you
hold on.
acknowledge it. Hold on. Just because you acknowledge it doesn't mean you're not dismissing it, right? Like, for example, I'll give you a good example.
Agree.
Right.
But
So by dismissing it, you're ignoring it.
But no. Acknowledging and ignoring are two opposite things. Now, acknowledging it while dismissing it, that's possible. But you can't say they've ignored it when they've acknowledged it. Those are two opposites. You see
Yeah,
what I'm
but when
saying?
but when you're dismissing it, you're not listening, right? Because listening is more than just hearing.
No. That would be ignoring it. Dismissing and ignoring it. Right. You can't use those all in the same word because I can acknowledge your feelings, but say that they do not align with mine. I have not dismissed yours or ignored them. Right. They just do not align with my feelings.
Well, that's not empathy though, because empathy is attempting to understand the other side of the argument by putting yourself in their shoes and then acting accordingly, right? So if they are putting them,
I'm saying cyber, I hear what you're saying. I'm putting myself in your shoes. You're gonna like your entire family's gonna lose you, right? You're
Yep.
here on this plane with me. I'm in your shoes. I get it. I'm in their shoes. But guess what? I don't feel bad. I don't care. This is what I'm here to do. I've not ignored what you've said. I've actually heard it and addressed it and told you my feelings are different than yours because, and you should be okay with this, you claim that morality is subjective. So what's the problem there?
no,
you,
I'm saying, hold on. I'm saying morality's objective. That's the argument is based on empathy, but they're ignoring that is still ignoring the side of the argument, right? Even though you listen, right? For example, I have teenagers, right? And they listen to me. I will look at my daughter and I will say, I'll tell her something and she will repeat it back to me. She listened, right? It went in her ear, went through her brain housing group, came back out her mouth. And then she comes back and she didn't listen. She ignored what I said, right? So this is what empathy is. Now, they could provide another argument. Like, for example, let's say we're talking about shots, right? And I know that my children aren't going to like shots, right? Every time it comes time for my children to get shots, it's a whine fest, right? But then I have to talk to them. And if they're going to listen, I listen to the fact that they don't want to get shots, right? I understand that, right? But all things considered, I'll have a talk with them, be like, well, look, this is what the shots will do. We'll utilize like the polio shot. This is the polio thing. I can't ignore the argument. If you get polio, and so then we have an argument. We have a back and forth about that, right? And all things considered, even though they're still protesting up to the moment they're getting that shot, they're still protesting. I'm not ignoring them, but I just recognize that all things considered, listening to the argument that this shot is going to cause it's going to reduce unnecessary harm. It's going to reduce the unnecessary harm. So when we're having these talks, these debates, and these dialectics, utilizing empathy, the goal is to go with what reduces the most unnecessary harm, right? That's ultimately the goal, right? And if this person listening, and if they're truly listening and they're not willing to go with the path that causes the most amount or the least amount of unnecessary harm, they're just wrong, right? It's just wrong.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but it's very similar. You can relate it back to the same situation where in their mind, whatever God says, the creator, right? Whatever plan he has, that is the best plan. So in your mind, like you said, it's whatever causes the least harm.
Well, they would need to show me, they would need to recite to me where in the Quran it states that, because not only are they attacking U.S. citizens. They are attacking everybody from around the world who is in there doing business, to include their own people, right? And so they would just have to then, reconcile that, because there isn't anything in the Quran. There is nothing in their teaching that says that, hey, do this to innocent people. The Quran doesn't support that. Their scripture literally doesn't support this, right?
Okay, so I at this point, I would have to know more how they would respond on that. So could I kind of give you an example more based on myself and what I could answer to? Kind of the same sort of thing, different situation. If I were to see like an elderly woman walking down the sidewalk outside through my window, and I decided I was going to walk outside and walk up behind her and just hit her in the back of the head with something as hard as I could, because I thought that'd be fun, funny, a good thing to do, right? And I told you, Cyber, I did that because I thought it would be fun. What would you respond to me?
Yeah, you're doing it because you thought it would be fun, but you're not putting yourself in her shoes, realizing that you, being in her shoes, wouldn't want. So you're ignoring a whole side of an argument, and you're taking a path that does not reduce unnecessary harm. Thus, you'd be wrong.
Okay.
One, because it's an irrational decision, and you're causing unnecessary harm.
Okay, so do you think it's more important to put other people before yourself? In that situation, it sounds like it.
It's important. So the important thing here is to reduce unnecessary harm. Now, the problem that you're going to run into, and I think what you're going to try to run, and maybe you're wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. Somebody tried to run this on me yesterday. It is the case of like, do I need to do something atrocious to one person, maybe a child, or save 1,000 people because somebody's going to push a button and a bomb is going to go off? Is this something where you're going down?
No, not at all, actually.
Oh, okay. So go ahead. What was your question going to be then?
Yeah, the question was just if I were to do that and say I want to go do that because I don't feel bad about it, right? And I don't think I've thought about it, but I don't think she should really care either. So I've decided this is a good thing to do. It's going to give me happiness, right? And I don't think it's really going to harm her. I don't think it's really it's not much of a concern to her, right? So I've decided I want to do this. What would you say to that?
Well, yeah, all things considered is that all things considered, knowing that we have laws against doing stuff like this for a reason, that you have seen cases where this happens and it's horrendous. Well, hold on. You've seen this and you see that it's horrendous. And if you... Wait, say what?
People can't agree on the laws and the government. So you can't turn to that as an objective thing. Yeah, you can say we have laws. No.
I'm not. Hold on. I'm not saying like the laws are the thing. What I'm saying is because again, it's all empathy is with all things considered, right? All things considered. When you look at the laws, you know that if somebody came up behind you and just hit you, you wouldn't like that, right? If we were to take a poll of how many people like having people coming up and hitting them from behind, when we take all this into consideration, all things into consideration, ain't nobody liking this. Thus meaning you're not taking them into consideration. You're ignoring that side of the argument. You're just presupposing that side of the argument. You're just convincing yourself this is a direct, not even wanting to acknowledge that side of the argument. Thus, you're just wrong. It's irrational. You're still wrong.
Okay, so what if I said, I'm going to go do this to them because I wish that someone would do this to me next time I walk down the street? I've considered them and myself, right? I'm going to go do this because I really, really hope that someone would think of me, put myself in their shoes, and do the same thing to me. Then what?
Well, now I would say that I think you're stretching because we would know that you wouldn't actually want that to happen.
No. But in this situation, I really do want it to happen. And you can agree, there are people out there who are so twisted that they want pain in some sort of way, whether it's physical or they want to, go through something. I don't know what I can say on TikTok. That's why I'm trying to dance around.
Well, yeah,
this,
yeah.
but-
So if it is a case where they are like that, right? Just because they are like that, usually that is going because they've got some kind of condition going on in which they need help. So again, all things considered, this person that's feeling this way, hold on. This person, well, I gotta answer your question.
Yeah.
This person would be delusional, right? They are delusional, right? And since they are delusional, they're ignoring a side of an argument, but not intentionally. But they're still ignoring the other side of the argument.
Right. So they would be delusional because they go against what you believe, right? It would be crazy for someone to say, I want that to happen to me in your shoes. You would say that's delusional, right? But to them, that's reality. So which one of you is right and why? If I told you,
yeah.
Cyber, I want to get hit in the head with a baseball bat tomorrow, that's my dream. And you would say, Timball, you are out of your mind. You're nuts. You're delusional. Which one of us is right and why?
Yeah, you'd still be wrong because still doing that is still not reducing unnecessary harm. That's the ultimate goal, is to just reduce the unnecessary harm.
It's necessary for me because that's what will give me the most happiness in this life. Is if I walk outside tomorrow, Cyber, and someone hits Timball in the head with a baseball bat, I will be happier than I've ever been in my entire life. It's not harm. It's actually the opposite. It's giving me happiness. Then what do you say?
Well,
That's
no,
my-
but you're hold on. But when you hit that person, because the thing, no. Oh yeah.
I'm
If
getting
you
it.
want to be, hold on. If you came up to me, let's say you came up to me and said, "Hey, I legit want to be hit." Right. If you speak those words to me and you hand me a baseball bat, yeah, then I'm morally justified in hitting you because I'm listening to your argument. You told me no. I may not want to do it, but I listen to your side of the argument, right? But what you can't do is just presuppose what the other person is wanting to go when it's going to cause unnecessary harm, right?
Right.
So you can't presuppose that.
Correct. And the reason you cannot presuppose that is because under your worldview, it's subjective. You'll try to claim it's objective, but it is subjective. because
No,
of
it's
what you
still
just said.
objective because
You
it's
just- you
no, because
finally
I'm
proved it
huh?
that it's subjective. You finally
I never
proved it
hold
by
on.
accident. It's subjective.
Hitting people in of itself has no moral value. Hitting somebody has no moral value. It's neutral, right?
I
It's
would
it's
disagree.
neutral.
I would disagree and say that it's harmful and it does have a immoral value. You would
No, if
you would
somebody
disagree?
Yeah, I would disagree with that. If somebody, just for the example you said, if you came up to me and said, hit me, I'm not morally wrong if I hit you. Now, would I be morally wrong, all things considered, if I knew there was something going on with you that I wasn't aware of? Yeah, I'd probably take that into consideration. I'd probably be hesitant.
Okay.
But just me coming up, you want me to hit you, and I just hit you because you want it. Intrinsically, there's nothing morally wrong with that. Now, let's say I find out that there is something wrong with you, and then you were to come up with me and say, "Hey, hit me." All things considered, I know that you are not in the right state of mind. Thus, I am no longer justified in hitting you because you are not in a state to be able to make that decision, right?
Okay. So that kind of raised a thought to me. Do you think it's okay for someone to, or not okay, would you say it's moral for someone to take their own life if they decide that's what they want to do?
I don't So I don't see anything, if they want to do it themselves.
It's a tough one.
No, it is.
It should
All
be
thing-
under any sort of subjective morality. This should be something that you really, really, really have to think about, because I don't think this is one you can really get away with. That's sad, man, but that's the one I don't like to raise. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good one to think about.
Somebody wants to take their own life. What I would say with that, if somebody was to come up with to me and say they want to do that, I would say initially it is morally wrong. And the reason why it would be morally wrong is in that case, because again, I'm taking other people, not just them, but I have to take their loved ones into consideration, right? I have to take their loved ones into consideration and their thoughts, put myself in their shoes. I have to listen to their argument. I also need to take into a situation that there's probably something going on in their life that might need either some diagnosis or might need something to help them get a boost in life, right? So I can answer that. Initially, it would be morally wrong to do that. Now, once they received help, and let's say they are receiving counseling and they are receiving help.
Can I respond to that? Can I respond?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So the reason you said it would be morally wrong is based on their family and the people around them. Right. So
well, I'm taking their arguments into consideration. I'm not ignoring their argument. Correct.
Correct. So kind of like I raised earlier, is it important or more important to put other people before yourself? Because in this situation, like I asked, if someone decided the best thing for me right now, myself, would be to take my own life, would that be morally right? You answered no, because you need to put the other people into consideration. So
no. What it is
the other people are more important than that person themselves. So why is that?
Yeah. You have to. Yeah. Anytime you're ignoring. Yeah. Other people are important. Anytime. It doesn't matter what it is. Hold on. Anytime you're ignoring another side to an argument, you're just wrong. Right. Anytime you're ignoring another side to an argument, you're just wrong. It's irrational, right? That is why
If they've said, Cyber, I've told my family the absolute best thing for me is for me to take my life, and they all tell me no, it's not, and then they decide they do take their life. Was it morally right for them because they consider have they
sought medical help?
Yeah, they've done all that. They've seen every professional there is, and they decided the best thing for me is to take my own life, regardless of how my family feels, what any doctor has told me. This is what I have decided for myself is the best thing. Is it good for them? Is it morally right for them to do that? Or should they put other people's opinions and thoughts before themselves?
So the question then is going to be if they are putting other people's thoughts and stuff in, because if this is the case, if they have been informed and they've listened, and as they have listened to these arguments, and they've sought the medical help and stuff, I think at that point in time. And what's the condition for this, I guess? Because somebody brought something up in chat. Do they have something that's terminal, or is it just a case that they just really want to do it?
I don't think it matters. I think they really want to do it, period. Whether it's terminal or whether they just have a hard life. mean, regardless, I don't think it really matters in this situation.
Well, so if they're doing it
moral?
just because they have a hard life, if they're doing it just because they're having a hard life and it's just them, I would say it's still irrational. If it is a case that they have like a terminal illness, and they want to go out on their own terms, right? I think that is what would change it, right? If they're wanting to go out on their own terms because of something terminal, I wouldn't think it's immoral. I see nothing wrong with it morality wise, as long as they're like, seeking professional help. One thing I don't want to see happening is somebody trying to do something that fell miserably and now they're left there suffering. But if it is a case though where it's just, well, I just really want to do that, again, like we talked about before, they're still ignoring. They listened, but they're still ignoring a whole other side to the argument. And they're just thinking about themselves. So yes, in that case, it would still be morally wrong.
That's what we talked about earlier. There's a difference between ignoring, right, and dismissing, because I can hear someone's side of the story, right? I can understand every word they're saying, every feeling they're throwing at me. But I can say, look, my personal feelings are above that. I understand, I hear what you're saying, but I have to put myself first. And so if they decide the best thing to do based on my feelings is to take my own life, even though I've heard you out, is that moral?
No, they're still wrong. They're still wrong because they're still acting selfishly, right? They're still wrong.
You should put others before yourself, is what you're saying. Others' opinions.
No, you shouldn't just ignore and dismiss arguments, right? That's the whole point. It's all about not ignoring and dismissing the argument and taking the action that causes the least amount of unnecessary harm.
Right. They would say, what would cause me more harm is to be on this earth one more day. If I could just end it all right now, I would have no more harm. That's the least harm to them in their mind. What's harmful is waking up another day and living through what they have in the past. What's not harmful is to end it all right now in their mind, which is extremely sad. But if you're going to take the path of least harm, this is why people do this, is to escape the harm. So how can you say to them, that's not the path of least harm? You should because and as unfortunate as this is, there are other means that we can do where, unfortunately, in a case like this, we could put them in a home, right? There's other avenues that we could take, but I would still say that self-deletion on the case of just because you feel like you're at your lowest would still be immoral. But if it is a case where you want to go out on your own terms because you've got something terminal, I think that makes it moral, as long as you're doing it probably through a medical professional and having it like properly assisted. But no, I would still say it's just morally wrong. Okay, but you did say in some case it could be moral to take your own life.
Yeah, if it's a case where they're already terminal and their family's already prepped for the loss,
no,
right?
Not non-terminal. This is not no disease that would physically.
Oh yeah, if it's not terminal, then it'd be immoral for them to do it. Just be a selfish act. And there's other means that we could do to keep them on this side of breathing in oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide, which I think we ought do. Now, don't get me wrong, it's
okay. So
it's not an easy answer, but that would be the moral thing to do.
What's the island? Someone on the other live the other day, we brought up an island. It's like an unreached tribe. It's pretty common. There's an unreached tribe on some island somewhere. I forget what it's called.
North Sentinel Island?
Yes, North Sentinel. So take an island like that, or just you've probably seen the movie Castaway. Someone gets stranded on this island by themselves, right? And they decide the best thing for them, they're alone. There's nobody else to even consider. It's just themselves. They decide, I want to take my own life because that's the best option. In that case, would it be moral for them to take their own life if they're by themselves on this island stranded and that's what they decide? Is that moral to kill yourself?
Yeah, what's their food supply like? Like, do they know how to gather food? Do they know how to get shelter? Anything like this?
Sure, yeah. There's plenty of food. They can find a way to make shelter, but they decide, I don't really want to do that. I think it'd be best for me to just end my life. Would that be moral?
Yeah, so if they're able to do this, then the moral thing to do would be to do that for as long as you can. Once you get to a point when you're starting to dwindle on supplies, then I would say that, again, going out on your own terms is perfectly acceptable in that case. But yeah, as long as you have a means to survive, I feel like you should survive. You still need to listen to the unheard argument.
But why? There is no argument. There is no one else
There
to talk
is.
to.
There is, because
what's
let's
immoral
say,
about taking your own life in that
yeah, because
situation?
as far
What's
as
immoral?
because as far as you know, you still have a chance to be survive or to be rescued. You could be rescued. You have the means to survive. So listening to the arguments of those around you, it would be immoral to unalive. Now, if it gets to the case where you don't have the supplies anymore and you know that starvation is imminent, then it would be then moral to unalive, because there is, even though the other side is arguing, you're literally going to unalive. There's nothing that can be done to prevent that, which is why in the case of people that are terminal, the unaliving is going to happen regardless. So I don't see anything wrong with doing it on your own terms. So yeah,
what makes that immoral to take your own life on an island by yourself if your entire family back home is already dead? You're the only one left in your entire family. You have plenty of food. You can find a way to make shelter, but you decide, I don't want to do this. I would rather
and you have no friends and family.
Correct. There's nobody who even knows you're on that island. You're by yourself. You could survive, but you decide, I don't want to. I would rather die. Why would that be immoral to take your own life?
Oh yeah, because there's still a society and we're societal, and if it is the case that there's lots of
they don't know about you. They don't know about you. You're the only person on Earth who knows you exist. You might
there's
as
still
well
the
be an ant.
yeah, there's still you can maybe just be an ant, but there is still society that exists, and society has an argument, right? That as long as you can, as long as hold on.
Society can't agree. We can't agree in the U.S., much less with other countries. We are so divided in the U.S. How are we supposed to agree with someone in Africa or Europe or Asia? You name it. Like, you can't say society because
hold on. Do you think that we as a society, take a look at starving children and say they deserve that? Do you think we as a society look at that? Or do we as a society say that is horrible? You know, now we may not agree on how to help them. We may not even agree to like send them aid. Sure, we may not agree on that and how to help them. That we might not agree on, but you're not going to tell me that we can, we as a society can look at starving children and not feel empathetic towards those children.
Agree, and
that's the argument, right? And that's the argument, not how to fix it. The argument here isn't about fixing it. The argument is, right, so if we find somebody on an island and we are able to do an autopsy,
but you and I would also say that no Jew deserves to be gassed, yet that happened based on societal terms.
Not everybody in the society. Hold on. Not everybody in the society agreed. And this is a This is a case of
not everybody in any society agrees with anything.
Well, hold on though. Hold on. Listen. Hold on. Listen. When that was going on, do you think that when the Shoah happened, do you think that anybody in that government structure listened to the argument from the Jewish people? Do you think they even took that into consideration?
Yeah, I think some did. And the same way that,
they didn't. They completely ignored it. They completely ignored it. If you've ever read Ava Braun Husband's book, if you've ever read it, I don't know if you have, I've read it. Go give it a read. Like everybody, I strongly recommend don't pay money for it. Download it, read it. It'll be an eye opener. And you will quickly learn that no, Ava Braun's husband did not take the Jewish people into consideration. He didn't listen to the argument. He completely ignored the other people.
Well, sure. But let me ask you, do you think that there's a chance that one of the Nazis decided, you know what, this is what I, and they thankfully stopped doing it or decided that what they have been doing is wrong. You and I would
Wait,
both hope
say that one more time.
you and I would both hope that there is one person who had considered themselves part of the Nazis who was doing these terrible acts that decided this is wrong. I no longer want to do this. Right?
Yeah, and because they listened to the other side of the argument, they acted with empathy and they said, this is wrong, this is shitty. And there were people that did that. There were people who had no idea what was going on because a lot of it was kept secret until the later stages. In fact, a good book that I recommend everybody read, if you haven't, Number the Stars. Number the Stars is an amazing book. It's about a 5th grade level, but it's an amazing book that I recommend everybody read. And it is a case where people, once they realized what was going on, they used empathy. They listened to the other side of the argument and they said, this is wrong. And they did what they could to put a stop to it. Many of them publicly voicing their opinion and finding themselves in that exact same spot. Right.
So which one's right, though? Which one's right? Those people who decided that it's wrong, or the people who had seen what they were doing, what it was causing, what the Jews had said, but they decided to keep on going, doing the same thing. Which one of them is right? Because
the people that were literally ignoring the other side to the argument were acting irrationally.
You keep saying ignoring because both the Nazis and the people who were part of the Nazis and decided to turn away from them, they both heard the other side. They didn't ignore it.
But they ignored it. They did. Hold on. They did ignore it. They did ignore it, which is why it allowed to happen. The people who ignored the other side that dismissed and ignored the other side of the argument and took the action that caused the most unnecessary harm. That is the side that is wrong. That is a side that is always going to be wrong.
Okay.
If you are taking an option, ignoring the other side of the argument and taking a choice that is going to cause the most amount of unnecessary harm will always be the wrong side. It'll be the wrong choice.
So the sticking point is harm. So I guess I'd ask, why is harm wrong?
Oh, that's not what this debate is about. Well, this debate is about whether or not.
Why is harm wrong?
Why is harm wrong? Because through empathy, we don't want to feel harm. It's the
some people do
empathetic thing, huh?
Some people do. And that's
no,
so
hold on. Again, like we discussed before, the only people that like want harm, right? And again, it's not a case of it's actual harm because generally it's consensual. Is usually people who are part of. Hold on. Are general. Hold on. Listen. It's part of people who are part of a specific a SMEX group, right? They do that, but that's consensual, right? So that's completely 100% consensual, and they're not unaliving each other.
Why is harm wrong?
Yeah, because again, when we listen to the argument of everybody around, it is wrong, right? Nobody wants to be harmed.
Wait, that's false. That's false. A lot of people harm themselves, and a lot of people harm other people. So that's
yeah. So hold on. So the people again, the people that self-harm are not in a right state of mind to do this, right?
Under what basis, though? I'm asking you, why is harm wrong? Whether or not they're harming themselves or someone's harming another person,
because it's unempathetic. Because it's unempathetic. Unempathetic is the transcendental.
Why is empathy the basis?
Because through evolution, we all have a pathway in our brain that picks up empathy. Now, some people will always act irrationally because it may not work. These people would be like psycho and sociopaths. Theirs doesn't work. Thus, every choice they're going to make is just going to be irrational because it doesn't work or function properly. But it is a case that every species, every person, every social species has this transmitter in their brain that we've evolved into, and right, which is what makes it the objective side, huh?
Evolved.
Yeah,
into.
we evolved into it, correct? Right.
Well, I would kind of agree. Evolved into, yeah. We all
Yeah.
have this, but why do we have it? That's
Yeah, but it's because it was beneficial for us to evolve with it, right? And when we're utilizing empathy and we're doing this, we see that it lights up, that it's going off. Now we can choose to follow that, or we can choose to discard it, right? But as soon as we choose to discard the signal that we're getting, then we're being irrational. We're ignoring a whole side to an argument, right? So that's what this all comes down to. That's why I grounded in empathy.
right. But like I said, when someone tells you, Cyber, this is the best thing for me, I have nobody else to consider their opinion, why is it not the best thing for them to take their life?
Because I'm still going to listen to the societal argument, because society has an argument, right? Again, we just stated. Now, what I'm going to say again is that society may not agree on what the answer is. Society isn't going to agree on the answer or how to fix it. But what society does agree on is that harm is bad, right? Unnecessary harm is bad. This is what society does agree on. Now, we don't agree on how to reduce that harm. That's what we don't agree on. But we all can, like I said, we can all look at starving children and say, that is wrong, that is horrible. We just can't agree on how to fix it, right? People all over the world watched the Shoah and said, that is horrible. And nations couldn't agree. The only people that were raising their fists and saying that was okay were people that weren't utilizing empathy, and they're acting for selfish reasons, right? And we see this all around the world with these actions.
Yeah, so do you think it's ironic that believers and non-believers both would agree with that? Yet, if evolution is true and the Big Bang is true, and the universe does not give a rip about your feelings or my feelings, that we would all somehow agree that harm is wrong?
Yeah, because as a society, it was beneficial for us to evolve as a society to where empathy was gone. It's what helped us. This is why we usually only see it with social creatures. When it comes to creatures that are usually solitary, you won't see very much empathy. You'll see things more along the lines of sympathy, but you won't see empathy. Because as social creatures, what made us social is it being beneficial and a selected trait for empathy. Yeah, anyways, I will need to let you go. I am having people say, move on. But yeah, I've had you up for almost an hour, but Timble, it's been a great discussion. I greatly appreciated it.
Yep, enjoyed it, man. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and, like I said, with Timble, it's always a hit or miss with Timble. With me, we're going to go ahead and move over to Video Ninja. On Video Ninja, I'm going to need to make a thing over here real quick on TikTok, just so we don't get feedback going on. I'm going to go ahead and mute that. We're going to go ahead and we're going to bring up Civid. How you doing? Guess how you doing?
Hi, Cived's name. I am doing very good. How are you?
I'm just checking something real quick.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get Cyril up in a minute. After this guest, and TikTok, can you hear me? Okay. So I'll make sure TikTok can hear you. Okay. And how old are you?
32, and I am Christian.
All right. So we do have quite a people waiting, so we are going to throw a timer up. The timer is for 15 minutes. So I have the timer up, and what is your, my question for you is, why is God a sick monster?
Well, the question is, if you're a moral relativist, right?
Sure.
Can you explain what makes God a sick monster? Like, what what is evil? What is good?
Oh yeah, I would just say evil is anything that causes unnecessary harm. And when we take a look at the scriptures, it's just full of unnecessary harm that God didn't need to cause. That would make him evil.
Okay, so with moral relativism, what does it matter? It's everyone's opinion.
Oh yeah, because
Like,
again, I don't know how much of the last argument you listened to, but I just grounded in empathy, right? So while you
okay,
may
so
think it doesn't matter.
I could have empathy with someone who is a violent unaliver, I guess you would say,
Mhm,
someone who wants to, let's say, they take a young woman and do terrible things to her. Someone could have
mhm.
empathy for, like, well, like he could, it could be not really fake. I mean, she could just be lying. Of course, I could have empathy for him, excuse him. So I don't really think that empathy is a sound means.
Oh, so what I mean by empathy and what empathy is the ability to listen to both sides of the argument, right? Or to all sides, not both sides, but all sides of the argument, right? Including hers, right? And so when we take all things considered, right, and we listen to her side of the argument, right, this also requires listening and looking at the evidence, right? And if it turns
Okay.
out that by looking at all of these things, right, and we listen to both sides of the argument, we're going to take the choice that causes the least amount of unnecessary harm, right? So if it is the case that he is guilty, then yeah, he should be punished for it. If it is a case where she did lie about it, right, then she should be punished, right, because she has then caused him unnecessary harm, right? So it goes to two sides, right? This is going to come down to listening to all the arguments with the evidence included.
Okay. So with that, like, unnecessary harm.
Hmm.
So, funny mustache man from World War II believed that a certain ethnic group was
Hmm.
harming his country, that they were extorting his people, that they were using a bunch of sexual degeneracy and all of that. And if he truly believed that these people were to the point causing so much harm that he could not reason with them and had to get rid of them, how is that wrong?
Oh yeah, because again, so with the Shoah, my grandparents were victims of that as well. So it is the case that if he's going to listen to all sides of the argument and look at all the evidence of it, he would have seen that it was the case that this wasn't happening. This wasn't the case. Thus, he was just acting irrationally. Thus, he was wrong.
Okay, but he and several thousand people generally believe society agreed to do that. Society agreed that these people needed to be gotten rid of. So if society agrees on it, then how is it not moral?
Yeah, because there are also people that didn't agree with it. There were people that weren't even aware, like society as a whole wasn't aware of it. And so when they were taking these choices, again, when you ignore a whole side to an argument and you ignore the evidence to that, you are acting irrational, thus you're wrong.
Evidence can be faked.
Huh?
Uh, what if evidence can be faked?
What do you mean? How, if it is the case that he
People could
feels
be like,
like the Jewish people were extorting his country, he would just need to provide the evidence. And if he can't provide the evidence, then he'd just be acting irrationally. But it could also
why
be
would
the
he need to
case,
provide evidence?
huh?
If he just feels about it, why would he need to have evidence if he just needs to, if he feels a certain way about it?
Yeah, because then he's not acting with empathy. He's acting unempathetic, right? And then he is ignoring a whole side of an argument.
What if he's being empathetic for like his country? He sees that a bunch of people are telling him this, that they feel that the Jewish
Hmm.
people are uh, doing this for his country, doing this that exploiting his country. So he has empathy for them, so and not for the people who are the perpetrators.
Yeah, well, if they're not feeling the empathy, right? Because empathy is listening to all sides of the argument, right? So, whenever we talk about morality, morality is a discussion topic. So, whenever we're utilizing dialectics, you must listen to all arguments. As soon as you're ignoring or dismissing arguments, then you're
Hmm.
acting irrationally and you're wrong. Because anytime you're acting irrationally, you're just wrong.
Well, you see, the Nuremberg trials, they were halted because they raised this very situation. So the lawyers over at the Nuremberg trials were like, hey, these guys over here, they were just doing their job. That was just their culture that they all agreed upon. Who gives you the right to do anything? So the Nuremberg trials completely stopped.
Oh yeah, this
I
is why
forget who it
laws,
was.
this is why like laws aren't always the moral thing, right? But this is why
Mhm.
empathy is transcendental. This is why empathy is transcendental. This is why empathy is so important, is because it requires you to listen to all sides of the argument. And if you're refusing to listen to the other side of the argument for whatever reason, again, you're acting irrationally and you're just wrong.
So who decides laws? Who decides what is good and what is evil?
Oh yeah, we would. Well, what we can do is we can all look at things and agree on certain things, right? Like for example, when we look at starving children, in anytime we look at starving children, right, we can all agree that starving children is horrific. Now, what we can't
I know.
agree on is how to fix that problem. But everybody sees starving children and has a gut reaction to that is horrid.
I could be a sound and reasonable person and say, no, that's not. They're just like a waste on space. So who cares if those children are starving?
Oh yeah, you may, again, we don't agree with how to do it, and so you may be like, we don't need to help them, but you're still going to have a view that that is horrible. And sure, you may come to a realization that you don't want to help them. Sure, you can come to that thing, but if you do draw that
So,
conclusion, then you're ignoring their side of the argument. Thus, you're acting irrational
so,
and you're wrong.
so if they are suffering, and the point of empathy is to eradicate all forms of suffering, like ease all their suffering, would it not be simple to just kill them all?
Oh, I didn't.
I mean, sorry,
Did
unalive them.
did hold,
Unalive
hold
them.
on, hold on. Did I ever say that the point of empathy was to eradicate all suffering?
That was the gist, but I think to lessen the
No, there was a
amount of
qualifier on that. It was all unnecessary suffering.
all unnecessary suffering.
Hmm.
Okay, so they're starving, it's unnecessary, so why not
Hmm.
unalive them?
Because that adds more unnecessary suffering, right? Could be the case that we could
I
give them
mean,
food
how?
and then
How?
we end the suffering.
How?
Because we could give them food
How?
and we end the suffering.
But if you give them food, they're just going to starve again later. They're still going to be hungry. Just kill them, and I mean, sorry, unalive them. I'm sorry, TikTok. Unalive them, and that suffering will be gone.
No, because you're
Is
causing
like
additional suffering. Because by going
to
in
who?
and doing that, because again, to who? To society. Again, other people that are going to see
What
you
society
going
wants?
in. Hold on. People that are going to see you going in and doing that are going to say, "Oh, I don't like that." Right? That is still horrific. Right? So you're still,
Why do you
and
still be
again, you're
starving in the
still
first place? If
hold
society
on,
doesn't
and
protect
you're
you.
still ignoring their side of the argument. The starving children, you're ignoring their side of the argument. Thus, you're still acting irrational.
I mean, what is their argument? Like they are,
Oh, they want
starving. They're
food.
hungry.
They want
They
food and perhaps to be taught how to farm their land, how to properly take care of their land, to probably go in and do whatever we can to help with their land so it can be farmed, right? Like there's other
but
things that we can do.
well, there's not enough resources to go on and help them. I mean, what if it is impossible to give them what they need? Should we, still take the argument, or when is the point where just learning about their arguments just falls apart?
Oh yeah, well, like another solution. Again, I can't give. Again, as a society, we can't agree on solutions to things that we can't agree on. But a
What's the point?
solution that could be, well, hold on. Let's say it is the case, right? Let's say it is the case that in this hypothetical, let's say we go to Cyberland, and Cyberland is a complete desert that rains maybe once a year, and it's only for 30 minutes every year, and it's been doing this for the last 10 years, and we have no reason to believe that it's ever going to change. What we could do, right, instead of just going in and just unaliving everybody on Cyberland, is we could go in, convince the people that are living there, and well, talk to nations ahead of time and say, hey, this is a real plight. Let's open our borders to them. Let's let them come in. Go talk to them. Explain to them that, hey, this isn't going to work for you. And then we can accept them into our societies, right? That's an option. Now, let's say for instance, they are stubborn and they just don't want to leave. They don't want to leave, right? We could provide them aid, right? But there will come a point though where they may like, let's say something happens and the world can't continue giving them supplies, right? Well, that's something that's beyond our control. And there may come a point where they will have to make the decision, come to realize that they will perish or they need to move, right? But that's a choice on them. But this doesn't mean that we need to be going in there and eradicating them. That's just horrific and unempathetic.
I think one of the main things that you are ignoring with moral relativism is that with moral relativism, you sort of like negate all of the advancements that humanity has done, like the abolition of slavery, the right
Yeah,
to
because
give
we
women
employed empathy.
that it's not good or evil, it's just like cultural shift. So if
No,
culture were
slavery is
to
horrific.
change
Slavery is wrong. Owning
based on
another
what?
person,
Based on what?
yeah, because nobody wants to be owned as another person. Nobody wants to be owned as property.
There's some people who indentured servitude who like I have no choice but to.
Oh yeah, if you're in a case where you have no choice but to, if that's your argument, you don't want to be in that because you're quite literally using as your argument saying, I don't want to, but.
Right. It's just that there are people who humans are naturally, cruel and stuff. So
Mhm.
in the whole grand scheme of things, why should we follow any laws considering that they're made by men? I mean, who are
Oh, I
you
never
to
said anything
say?
about following. I never said anything about following laws. I don't know where you've
I
been
know,
at
but
this
like,
entire conversation. What I am saying, we got 2 minutes. What I am saying is that empathy is simply the ability to listen to all sides of an argument, look at all the evidence, and then make decisions once all sides of the arguments have been listened to. And the decision ought be the decision that causes or reduces unnecessary harm.
okay, and the unnecessary harm that happens to, let's say, the Christians over in Islamic states where they are being
Yeah,
executed.
they're acting unempathetically. This shouldn't be happening to the Christians. They're being unempathetic.
But they again like with the whole moral thing. Who cares with empathy and whatnot? It
Oh
is
yeah,
like
because we as a society can look at that anytime any type of mass unaliving is horrific. We can all look at that and say that is wrong. Nobody looks at unalivings of mass amounts of people and say that's okay. The only time we do this is again when we're acting
Stalin and World
unempathetic.
War II.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The only time we look at it as being okay is when we start looking at it through social lenses, and it's through one-sided. So again, when we look at things through a religious lens, through a racist lens, when we look at things through these lenses, then we'll be unempathetic. But if we look at humans as a people, nobody wants to look at people as a whole and say it's okay just to see mass unaliving. Nobody's okay with that.
Okay. I know that you're pressed for time, so I'll go ahead and end it here. But I just have like one final statement here, if you'll permit me.
Sure, go
reason
ahead.
the reason why I believe in what I believe is that I do not kill anyone.
Man, that guy was goofy. And Adele, thank you so much for the $10 super chat on YouTube. Adele said, did I really join the call just in time to hear this dude try to justify that Ava Braun's husband has empathy and starving children should be unalived? That's love for sure. And Adele, you absolutely did hear this. You did hear that from this guest. It was absolutely disgusting. And those who are on Video Ninja should probably, like, when you're not on, when I'm not in a call with you, hop back over to YouTube. You're muted on my end so hop on over, listen to the argument, because I literally just finished that argument with somebody else. You know, and the fact that guest was lost in the sauce with that is just absolutely wild. And just so you know, this argument that I have, I didn't develop it. It's not my argument. It is an argument that I did get from Ian. So if you're not following Ian, go follow Ian. It's allegedly Ian. And real quick, I got another super chat. I have a 99-cent super chat from George with popcorn. And I got a $4.99 from Marduk. Marduk, welcome aboard. Thanks for the support. And it is Hiya. So Hiya, Marduk. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the support. I greatly appreciate it. And Hanji, the person that you mentioned was in chat. If they're still in there, see if I can bring them up. And Hanji, if they're still in the guest request, can you bring them up? And is Hanji, oh, there we go. Ripper, 1v1 me, bro, in Marvel vs. Capcom. Man, I don't even know where I stand. I haven't, yeah, Jaren, if you're not following CBJ, give Christ Before Jesus a follow. And on that, also go follow Jaren and I's channel on YouTube and TikTok. It is Reason and Rebellion. How you doing? Is it Cyril? How do you pronounce the name?
Yes, Cyril.
All right.
Cyril,
Can I
yeah.
get your age?
Yes, I'm 30 years old.
And are you a Christian?
Yes, I was born and raised a Christian. I turned into an atheist, and then I became a believer again.
Oh, we got to fix that. We have to fix that. Yeah.
You want me to say atheist?
Yeah, come back to atheism. Atheism is the most moral way to go. So the issue that you run into...
Sorry, I've
Oh,
done
go
that
ahead.
For 10 years.
Wait, say that one more time. And hold on, I do got to reset this timer because I do have a list. So yeah, I believe that God is a sick fuck. Give me your strongest argument as to why you don't believe he's a sick fuck.
Yes. So, first of all, you believe in duality, that we live in a world of duality, of good and bad, plus and minus, dark
yeah.
and light. Correct?
I don't know if there's like dark and light. Like all I believe that like bad is like causing unnecessary harm. I believe that's bad.
Okay. So God, if we live in a world of duality, so God, if we dissect it, we can split God into the God of good and the God of bad. And on top of that is the creator of the God of good and the God of bad.
So do you believe, hold on, so you believe that there's three gods? sorry, three gods. There's a god, there's the creator, and then a god of good and a god of bad.
Yes. So
Okay,
the
does
creator,
this?
the
Okay.
creator is not is neutral. The creator is a neutral entity, intelligence that created this reality, this world through um, intelligence, mathematics, and whatnot. So
Okay, and what is, hold on, what is this chief creator? What is his goal?
what is his goal? Okay, interesting. The goal is, as a creator yourself, why do you create? You create to experience, to experiment, to
Well, hold on. So
learn,
when
grow.
I create for a few different reasons. I create one because I think that getting the message out about these horrible deities is extremely important. But two, it's entertainment, right? So there's twofold to it.
Okay. For you, it's
Right.
entertainment.
But this is
For
why
others,
I do it. But that's not the question though. The question is, what is the goal of this head creator? What is his goal?
So it's like, for you, let's say if you play games, for example, you create a world, right?
Uh-huh.
You create a world with many things in it, correct? And if there was no challenge and you were all the time, you were good, there were no bad at all, you wouldn't grow, you wouldn't evolve, you wouldn't think, you wouldn't be motivated to do, to push, and so on. Do you agree on that?
Are you talking about as the creator of the game?
As the human being, as the player, not
Oh,
as the
I don't.
creator. As the
Hold on. I don't.
creator,
We're not talking about. Hold on. We're not talking about the player. We're talking about the creator, right? So are you Are you referring to the player? Is the player equivalent to the creator?
So no, the player has to have good and bad to evolve and grow and do all of these things. So the creator created this game, let's say,
Okay.
right? Like we create a game, correct? What are the reasons? I don't know. It's another topic. But if we live in a dual world, okay? So there's a spectrum of good and there's a spectrum of bad. You can be extremely good. You can be the divine. Let's say.
Well, yeah, but hold on. We're talking about this one deity. So hold on. I just need some clarifying questions. So when I play a game, right? When I create a game, if I play a game, when I turn the game off, like the characters in the game don't have feeling, emotion. They don't have none of that, right? They're literally just code. But we do. So
No,
what is the goal?
No, wait. Code. You just said code, right? So if computers have computer language and you're saying code, humans, we have DNA, we have so on and so forth. We have the biological language.
Yeah, but code isn't DNA code isn't analogous to computer code. They're not the same.
No, they're not the same, but as a reference.
They're not even analogous. They're not even analogous. It's okay to use like code if you're using it for like somebody who has no intention of going any further into biology. But any biologists that are on either YouTube or watching TikTok, they're gonna, if I accept that like DNA code is analogous to computer code, they're gonna unsubscribe and unfollow, and I wouldn't blame them.
Not in that sense. In a sense that how are you different from an animal or from a rock or from a plant? There is something that differentiates you from them, right? Differentiates you from solid.
What does this have to do with, hold on, what does this have to do with what is the goal of this chief god, this chief creator? What is his goal with us? That was the question. That's what we're trying to get an answer to.
Yes, exactly. So the creator created a game that has duality in it, all right? Has good, has bad. Why? Because for, let's say, if the creator is able to enter the game through you or whatever it is, play the game for him.
So I dropped him. Because that was a big nothing burger, and he wasn't even like answering the question. So we're gonna go ahead and pop back over to Video Ninja, because I do have quite a few people in that chat waiting. We're gonna go ahead and bring Jacob on up. Jacob, how you doing?
Hello?
Hello, Jacob. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me check something here. Yep. And real quick, if you're not, Alex Ruby is in chat. Alex, if you want to leave something in chat, give Alex a follow. Alex hosts amazing lives as well. Yeah, I can hear you. Are you, Jacob, are you a Christian?
Yeah, I am.
Ryan, how old are you?
27.
All right. And my question for you is, why is God a sick monster?
I don't think he is.
All right. What's your view on slavery?
Bad.
Yeah, so why is God okay with slavery?
He's not.
He is. Have you read the Old Testament?
I have.
And have you read where he's perfectly okay with it?
Where?
Where? Yeah, I could bring this up. Hold on, I'm trying to get this puzzle piece. For some reason, on TikTok, whenever I get the puzzle piece thing, it keeps on going and doing the whole thing where it's like, there is no internet connection, but I do have internet. My internet's good. I've got full bars with my internet access. I don't know why it's doing that, and it only gives me 4 minutes before it decides it wants to disconnect. So YouTube, if it ends up disconnecting, I'll restart. So yeah, in Leviticus, you want to know where the slavery is at, and you've never read Leviticus or Exodus, Deuteronomy.
No, I've read the Bible multiple times.
Okay.
Whatever source text you're going to, I'm just waiting for what you're going to pick.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to we'll go to Leviticus 25, starting in verse 39.
Yep, go for it.
Yeah, so in Leviticus, starting in verse 39, it's going to make a clear thing where it says, if any who are dependent on you, and again, if you read the Leviticus 25, starting in verse 8 with the year of the Jubilee, it makes it clear that it's the Israelites. But it says, if any of you who are dependent on become so impoverished that they sell themselves to you, you shall not make them serve as slaves. You shall not make them serve as slaves. They shall remain with you as hired or bound laborers. They shall serve you until the end of the year of the Jubilee. Then they and their children shall go out with them from your authority. And the word that we see for making them as hired or bound laborers is secure, which means like paid worker. So that's the term that's used for them. They're not to be called aved. And we know that this is the Israelites because, for they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. You shall not, or they shall not be sold as slaves are sold. But then it goes on to verse 44. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, again, up above, the Israelites are not to be referred to as slaves. It is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from the aliens residing with you and from their families who are with you, born in your land. They may be your property. The Israelites are to be treated as hired and bound laborers, not property. You may keep them as possessions for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. Again, up above, they get freed every 7 years or on the year of the Jubilee. These you may treat as slaves. Again, the Israelites are not to be treated as slaves.
Yeah, right. So the slaves are to be taken from the nations that are surrounding Israel. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I gave me the puzzle piece. Gave me the puzzle piece, chat. We're good. So yeah, so this is a clear indication where we separate hired and bound laborers from actual slavery.
Yeah, right. It's from the nations that are around Israel, the Canaanites and the Philistines and the
Well, it's
Amorites
anybody.
and
Yeah,
all
it's
the
anybody that's around
right,
them,
right,
correct?
right. The idolatrous, wicked nations surrounding Israel at the time.
Oh, it doesn't say anything about them being wicked or anything. There, as a matter of
Oh no,
fact, there
it
there
does.
were Egyptians that were traveling with them, and these Egyptians
Hmm.
that were traveling with them, that came out of Egypt with them, had slaves. So some of these people that joined with Israel, whether they joined with them at the beginning of the Exodus or they joined with them through their travels. Oh, but let me get this timer reset. So we do have 15 minutes because I do have quite a few people waiting.
Yeah. You're all good.
Yeah. But there are people that were joining with them that were wicked, or no, sorry, that weren't wicked, that had slaves, and they were allowed to join the Israelite society, and the Israelites could trade with them as well.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, the Old Testament talks a lot about sojourners and people coming in and being worked into Israel's kind of to be Israelites. That's why they're to be taken from the nations around them, right? Because they're the
No, they
wicked
could. Well,
Amorites,
hold on. That's not
Canaanites,
what it says.
Philistines.
Well, that's not what it says.
Okay.
And let me get this brought up so that chat can see it. But that's not what it
Yeah.
says. Yeah, what it says is you may also acquire them from the aliens residing with you and from their families
Right.
who are with you who've
Right.
been born in your land, right? So it's not just
But
acquiring
they're not
them.
Israelites.
Correct, because they weren't. Not everybody
They're
was
aliens
required
that
to
came
be
to Israel and were born there.
correct. So they could take
Right.
slaves
So
from
God is
them.
very concerned with purity in the Old Testament, right? You see this a
Hmm.
lot in Mosaic law around marriage, right? You stone the
Hmm.
if she's not a virgin, you stone her on her wedding night, right? And then you have you have all of these different laws surrounding marriage to represent the purity that is the marriage that Israel is supposed to have with God, and then it transitions to Christ later on, and Christ divorces Israel in 70 AD. That's like the partial preterist view
Well,
of
hold on. The
eschatology that kind
question
of
though
ties that all together.
was right. Hold on. And
Sure,
I'm
sure.
sorry,
Yeah,
but
go
we're not
ahead.
going to pivot away from why is God okay with slavery?
Uh-huh.
Because that's what the question was,
He's not.
right? So why is God
He's
okay with
not. Yeah,
slavery?
so in Exodus, the prescription for stealing someone is death.
Yeah, yeah, you couldn't steal anybody. You're absolutely right. You weren't allowed to like go
Right.
out
So
and just capture
slavery equals
somebody.
death.
Yeah, you couldn't go out and kidnap somebody and turn them into a slave, right? Absolutely. But
Right.
you could acquire slaves. So if you came to
Yeah.
a city and they had a
Right. So can I
slave
ask you a
trade
question?
going on, you could
Uh-huh.
buy the slave. You didn't care how they acquired the slave. So kidnapping just doesn't fit here.
Right, but it is still kidnapping. You can't kidnap somebody and make them your slave. You can do it from the surrounding wicked nations because God is very concerned with the purity of Israel at the time.
No,
That
even if you went into a
Christ represents
city,
later.
well, hold
Mhm.
on. Even if you went into a city that like you weren't commanded to attack or that you had no intention of like going to war with, and they had a slave
Yeah.
trade, you could still go into the town and buy and trade slaves. That was still permitted because that you didn't care how they acquired the slaves.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's from the surrounding nations.
Yeah, correct. So again, the question is, why is
Right.
God okay
So
with slavery?
right, he's not. So let me flesh this out a little bit because we'll go in this circle here. Like, can I pose a question here that'll kind of change it up a little bit? Here's the question, right?
Better answer the
So is it
question.
possible? What is the question? I'll answer your question.
Yeah, why is God okay with
Why is
slavery?
God okay with slavery?
Mhm.
God is okay with slavery the way that you're posing this question, but ultimately God is not okay with slavery.
He is. He never condemns it.
God is he does condemn it.
Yeah, show me a verse where he
In Exodus,
condemns
again,
physical
the punishment for
slavery.
stealing someone is death.
Yeah, we're not talking about stealing
someone equals
people.
death.
Yeah, we're not talking about stealing people, right? Stealing
What is
people.
slavery other than stealing somebody?
in the ancient world, you could buy slaves, right? You didn't care how you did them. Stealing was physically sneaking around and like grabbing something and taking it. That's what stealing is. But in the ancient world, like buying a slave wasn't considered stealing.
Right. So the way that the gospel message kind of works from Genesis to Revelation, if you're gonna bind your truth within the 66 book canonical
Hmm.
Bible, is it's this spectrum that starts and it ends at Revelation, right? So it's this timeline, it's this redemptive story where God is speaking to a specific people, still telling them that stealing people is worthy of death. But in the end,
Hmm.
it's to represent and foreshadow Christ and his sacrifice, right? And so, is it possible
No,
that
no.
God
Can you show
is
me? Can
using
you
this and
show me
permitting
where
these
it
things?
talks about? Hold on. So we get a thing where you can't like kidnap people, but again, slavery.
Right.
Right. If I buy a slave, right? If I buy a slave, I didn't kidnap the slave, right? I bought a slave. I don't care how the person that I'm buying the slave from, I don't care how they acquired it, but you are right. I can't just go out and kidnap a slave, right? I'm not allowed to do that, but I am legally allowed under the law, under God's law, to buy a slave. That is allowed. And there's not a single New Testament verse that condemns that.
Yeah, there is actually. I forget where it's at. Romans or Corinthians. There's not Jew nor slave, female nor male, right? We're all one in Christ Jesus.
Yeah, that's talking
The
about like
reason,
spiritual. That's talking about in Christ as a
right,
Christian, because
right, that's
Christ wants
correct.
you to
Yeah,
be a
so the
slave to
transcendental
him.
argument, right? So God
Well, let me
being
ask you a question
the
on that, though.
transcendental
Let me ask
argument
you a
of
quick,
his
hold on. Let me ask you a
upward
quick
aim.
question with that,
Go ahead.
though. Hold on. I just want to
Go ahead.
check your logic on this. Are
Yeah,
trans
sure.
women women?
Are trans women women?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't see that question beneficial to this at all. I don't
No, I'm
understand.
just asking because it says there's no man or woman. So
Uh-huh.
is a
Oh,
trans
okay. I
woman a
see what you're
woman?
saying. Oh, I forgot that that verse brings up that conversation, right? So no, so the Bible is pretty clear that there's X X X Y, right?
Yeah, so
One
if
man,
it is the case then
one
that a
woman.
trans woman isn't a woman, you're going to draw a distinction that there is man and woman. And I'm not going into like a trans debate here, but if you're going to say
Yeah,
that there
yeah, yeah,
is
for sure.
still man and woman, then again, you and I would then, you'd have to concede that this is talking about a spiritual thing, not a physical
No,
thing.
absolutely. Yeah, no.
Okay, yeah. So
So
again, the question was, can you show me where the New Testament ends physical slavery?
um can I show you where the New Testament ends slavery? Yeah, the source text that I just gave you.
No, that's
There's not
spiritual
Greek
slavery.
nor
You
slave,
just
male nor female.
agreed. Hold on. You just agreed
Yeah.
that this is physical or spiritual slavery, not physical slavery.
The abolitionist movement, right, is
The
derived
abolitionist
from
movement was
a
actually
Christian.
started by secular. It was started by the Haitians and by the French during the French Revolution. It wasn't until the secular movement started the slave abolition that Christianity was finally like, hey, we should jump on board with that. But it had been long started by secularists
I
before.
guess my only question, I'll kind of pivot from that a little bit. I guess my only question at this point would be like, what Christians have you been interacting with that want slavery to be a thing? Or even after the abolitionist movement, what Christians wanted slavery to still be a thing?
Oh, no, it's not about that. I'm just wondering why your God is okay with it. It's not about what
He's
Christians
not.
want today. It's about why was God okay with it?
Yeah, because it's a redemptive story that started in a place with a specific people in a specific cultural time, right? But even in that specific cultural time, God still condemns slavery. You cannot steal people. That's death, right?
No,
But the
God was
entire
okay with
story of
it.
the Exodus, right? The entire meta story of Moses and the Exodus is taking slaves and releasing them back to the Holy Land, right? Which is a foreshadow of Christ,
No, because
right?
God, no. The whole
Freeing
thing
us
is
from our
about
sin,
God
right?
saying, hold on, the whole story of the Exodus is God wanting to show his power and his might over the other deities, right? Because he's showing his power and his might over the Egyptian gods, right? And we see this throughout the entirety of the Old Testament where God is wanting to show his
No, that's
power
true.
over the other deities, where Israel
Absolutely.
is his selected people, which is why he allows the Israelites to enslave other people, but the Israelites themselves can never be enslaved, right?
Right, because it's the
Unless
purity of
he's
Israel
doing
that
it
God is
as
concerned with.
punishment. unless he's doing it
Right.
to them as punishment.
Right. So the entire meta story of the Bible is to glorify God ultimately. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, but
Yes,
it's not to end
it is so
slavery.
God can show his power.
Yeah, to
It's
show
not to
that
end slavery.
everybody is a slave to God,
The entire
right? The Israelites are a slave to
meta
God.
story is to end slavery.
No, the entire
That's why the
meta
second
story is
greatest
that hold
miracle
on.
in the Bible is
The
the
en-
Exodus.
No, the entire meta story is to show that
It's a free
Israel
people. It's
are
to
the
free
slaves
slaves from
of
their sin.
God. Hold on. Is to show that Israel are the slave of God, which is why he's the only one who can enslave them. No other nation can. Only he can do that. And other nations will only do it once he allows it. And that
Correct.
is
He's the
why,
only one that
hold
can do
on.
it, so we
And that
cannot
is
enslave
why
people.
Jesus, if you believe Jesus is God, that is why you become
Right.
a slave as a Christian. You
Correct.
become a slave to Christ
To glorify God.
because the meta story is we are nothing but
To not be a
slaves.
slave to your sin.
Yeah, and you are slaves to Christ and ultimately God. And God wants the
Correct.
entire world, all the peoples he creates, to be his slave. So it's not about freeing
Correct.
slavery. It's about making the entire world his slave. So as a matter of fact, it's about perpetuating and growing slavery for him.
Man on man slavery by men is corrupt.
But God allows it for the
The Bible
Israelites.
outlines this in Exodus at that specific time.
Yeah, the Bible
redemptive
never
story was
outlaws
still
it,
taking
though.
place. There's
Again,
still things
show
that
me a
happen.
source where the Bible ever says
did.
physical slavery is wrong.
There's no Greek nor slave.
You agreed not even 5 minutes ago that that was spiritual, not physical.
It is spiritual because if it's spiritual, then it elevates us to have this upward aim towards the spiritual that'll have us not do the things in the physical that we're not supposed to be doing, like having slaves. That's the whole
Yeah,
point of the Bible,
because
is
he
to have this
wants
upward
us. Yeah,
tangential
because
aim
he
towards
wants
God that is
us.
the top of the ladder.
Yeah, because
Because when we
whose slave
put
are we
things in the
spiritually?
hierarchical
Hold on,
structure
spiritually,
that
who are
God
we
tells us
slaves
to do
of?
to do those things, then we won't do the things that he tells us
Hold
not
on.
to do.
Spiritually, who are we
Since
slaves
we are
of?
slaves to God.
Hold on, spiritually, who are we? Yeah, we're slaves to God.
God.
Spiritually. Yeah. So that's why that's spiritual, because God spiritually doesn't want us to be enslaved to other people, because it is the case that in the ancient cultures, they believe that your slaves went with you, which is why in the ancient cultures, and we see this kind of fading out during antiquity, but in the ancient cultures, that's why when leaders would pass on, they'd have other people that would be sacrificed and laid with them, because these were to be their slaves in the next life, right? And so this is just a callback to that, where God is saying, hey, in the next life, I don't want you to be their slave. You're my slave in the afterlife. Because that's what the whole Old Testament is about. Christ, it teaches, be a slave to Christ.
Yeah, I don't understand how this bolsters your point that slavery is not condemned in the Bible.
Yeah, you haven't shown it to me.
Yeah, physical slaves, men having physical slaves of other men, is condemned by death in the Bible.
No, it's not. Where?
Exodus.
Exodus doesn't condemn it. Exodus says you can't go find a person and kidnap them and turn them into your slave. You have to buy them. There is a legal means to acquire slaves.
From the wicked nations and from the aliens. God is concerned with
correct. Yeah. Anybody who is not an Israelite, you're allowed to buy slaves. You're allowed to acquire slaves from them.
Christ comes.
Wait.
So when Christ comes in the
after Christ comes, we're all going to be slaves to Christ
through the Mosaic law. Right. So that Mosaic law, right, was to represent, hey, we're not supposed to be having slaves. If you have slaves in the physical of other men, you are to be put to death, right? But
that's not what the hold on. We'll go read the law again. We'll go read the law again, because I don't think you've read it, right?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah. So again,
I just
in Leviticus,
just to say I really appreciate this stream and what you do, but I just wanted to say that real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Leviticus 25 is okay with it. Exodus 21, Exodus 21 states that you can actually beat your male and female slaves as long as they survive a day or two.
Right.
If they unalive immediately, you're to be put to death. Exodus 20:17,
But
which
you're
is
a
one
moral
of the 10
relativist. Why is
commandments.
beating somebody bad?
Huh?
That's a moot argument. You're a moral relativist. Beating somebody, it doesn't matter. We're just.
Oh no,
Stardust
hold on.
Stardust.
We're talking about slavery here, my dude. We're
Yeah,
talking
go ahead.
about
Sorry.
slavery.
Go
Why
ahead.
slavery's
Okay,
wrong,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
right? We have Exodus 20:17, which is actually one of the 10 commandments. States you shall not covet your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, male or female slave, ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So even in the 10 commandments is acknowledging that slaves are property. We have, Deuteronomy 20, which actually gives a condition. When you draw near a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you at forced labor.
Right. And if they don't, then besiege them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Anyways,
you're still not bolstering any of your points, though. Just because it says slaves in the 10 Commandments, it's still talking about don't covet. In that time and place.
Don't
right?
covet your neighbor's property. It's talking about don't covet your neighbor's property. Anyways, the 15 minutes is up. I do got to move on, but I do appreciate the conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, come back up tomorrow, though. I'll be back live again. Come back up tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, for sure. Have a good.
Man, that guy. Holy. All right, come over here to YouTube. Nova and Stella coveting their neighbor's donkey. You know what? I hope. Let me check super chats real quick. I want to make sure I'm not missing any super chats that I might have got. And if you like the stream, go ahead and we got Rock Hard for Doug. Rock Hard for Doug, $5 super chat. Let me see if we can get this brought up real quick. Want to make sure that I read it. $5 super chat. Is this person actually arguing for the justification of slavery because the surrounding nations were all wicked? Sounds kind of wicked. Yeah, that's what it sounds like he was arguing for. I don't know if he would admit it. But yeah, it was goofy. Like, but the slaves or the nations around them because they were wicked. So yeah, it does sound like that's what he was arguing for. And that's not what the text suggested. The text suggests, and its whole purpose is, Israel, you're not allowed to be slaves unless I'm causing it as punishment. I need you to be punished, so I will allow you to be slaves, which is why we get like Babylon and other things. But nobody else was allowed to do this to the Israelites. But thank you so much. All right, let's go ahead and move along. And we're going to get Donnie brought on up. Donnie, are you there?
I am.
And can I get your age?
I'm 30 years old.
And what's your religion?
I'm a Christian.
All right, and let me get this timer reset real quick. All right, you got 15 minutes because I do have quite a few people that are wanting to get in the box. My question for you is, why is God a sick monster?
So we're presupposing God then, correct?
Yeah, I'll step into your worldview, sure.
Okay, so if we presuppose God and we're presupposing a Christian God then, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means we have to accept the Bible is true. And if the Bible is true, then the transcendental argument says that there is no point.
Oh, I don't have to accept the Bible's true. I don't have to accept the Bible's true.
Why not?
Because the Bible's full of contradictions. The Bible's full of contradictions and it's full of scientific errors.
Well, you're now retreating from your original presupposition.
No, I'm not.
I asked you very specifically. We're presupposing the Christian God is true, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then that means the Bible is true.
No, it means the Bible still has contradictions in it, and it still means that it has scientific errors in it. That's just factually true.
Okay. We'll try and address this a little bit differently then. So let's talk about you've a couple times here with a couple different guests talked about harm reduction as your basis for morality. So you with the last guy said you're a moral relativist, but you're not. You're a moral objectivism, based off of empathy as your grounding root, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the classical trolley problem then. Is it moral to pull the lever?
Give me this problem again real quick.
There's a trolley proceeding down a railway. It has a fork in it. There is a lever that controls the mechanism to allow the different paths. On one path, there are 5 people that are currently tied to the rail, and it is going down that path at this moment. On the secondary path, there is one person who is tied to the rail. Is it moral to pull it and unalive the one person and save the 5, or moral to allow the 5 people to be unalived?
What's the reasoning in this case for the trolley to be on its way?
Not relevant.
Okay. Yeah. So in this case, with the empathy argument, if I'm going to stand by, it's going to listen to arguments of all people to cause the most amount of unnecessary harm. So in this situation, if I don't know who it is, if I don't know what caused this, it would be the case. What path is it currently on?
It is going down the 5-person path.
The 5-person. So in this case, all arguments considered, I would probably pull the lever and choose the one, because that would cause the most unnecessary harm. It'd cause the least unnecessary harm. All arguments and all things considered. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. So if we use an all things considered, that makes sense from a moral objectivist standpoint, that empathetically speaking, we should switch it to the one person and let them be unalived. Here's the problem with that, is that when you make that decision, you have now interceded. You have made a moral decision.
To cause, to reduce the amount of unnecessary harm. Yeah, that'd be the moral thing to do.
Okay, well, let's blow that example up some then, because multiple times tonight you have talked about the mustache man and his big thing with the Jews. So you yesterday, at least, I don't know about tonight, but yesterday you definitely argued that you would not unalive the mustache man as an infant, but it's the same exact problem.
No, it's not the exact same problem. Because at the time of him being, because at the time of him being an infant, there is no direct harm at that point in time, right? And so, but again, as soon as declarations are done where things can actually take place, then he has taken an action, and then I am then justified listening to arguments, because at the time of him being an infant, there's no argument to be made. Once he is elected into office and he takes actions to do these horrific action, then I would then have justification, because then there is now an argument to be listened to.
Okay, well, let's wind it back to the classical trolley problem then, because by that logic, we should not pull the lever until it's after it's hit the 5 people.
What? No, because we would see that when these things are being signed, or they're about to be signed, I know that these are going to be signed, and then I could go ahead and it would be
you
justified.
You don't know that the trolley's going to hit it, though, is my whole argument here, is that we're presupposing that fact.
Wait, are you saying I didn't? Hold on. You're changing the argument then. The argument was that I knew that I was going to hit these 5 people, and there was a track that have one. If I don't know that these 5 people are on the line, if I don't know that, then I'm not going to pull the lever.
That's not the argument. I asked that you let me finish what I'm saying. Thank you. So when it comes to the argument that you're making against unaliving Mustache Man as a child, when we apply that same argument, we have to wait until harm begins to act upon it. We cannot pull the lever moralistically using your own logic until they are hit.
No, because if you know about Mustache Man, he published his book. His book was flying off the shelves, right? So he made his position and stance really clear, right? So we have a reasoning.
He began harm.
Huh?
He began harming.
Do you know how he ended up getting into office? Are you familiar how he ended up in office?
I promise I probably know better than you. This isn't a discussion you want to go down with me. Let's stick to logic.
Well, so hold on. How did he end up in office, first of all?
So he was part of the Nazi Party, and so the Nazi Party put him in as chancellor, and then at that point in time, he managed to conglomerate power into a point with the brown shirts, the NSDP, into a point and position of power where he took over. So again, you really don't want to have this conversation.
Wait, did he actually get elected in, or is it the case where the president, because the president, the president and chancellor are two different positions, and essentially the president just got tired of running and was just like,
I already know, and it's not relevant.
Exactly, right. So it is the case that if I know the writings that he had, right? If I know the writings that he has and I see him getting appointed, right, I'm able to recognize what's going on. So it's not like there's this unknown thing as he's an adult. As a child, I have no idea that this is going to happen, right? Once he's an adult, now I have an argument for these. Baby Hitler, I don't have the argument. Adult Hitler, once these things are being actually put into play, now I have an argument.
But all things considered, you have foresight and knowledge of what is going to happen. If you have a time machine and can go back and unalive baby Hitler by your own moral objectivism, you should go do it.
I can do it when he's later at a date before he anything before any of this harm has been done, but after he has given me an argument for it.
So again, though, you have all things considered. You've already said multiple times you're a proponent of all things considered. With modern knowledge, all things considered, you know.
Yeah, and I would do it when he's an adult, after he's already taken steps to do these horrific things, because then I have the argument. At Baby Schitler, I don't have the argument. I don't know why that's so hard to understand.
Well, that's not the lever I've presented. The lever I've presented is you can do it when he's a baby or not at all. You can either flip the switch or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it to Baby Schitler. And there's a third option, which is I can do it once he's an adult.
No, it's not a third option in our presupposition. It has not been presented to you. It's not something we've agreed on. So what we've agreed on is that you have You have a lever that you can pull. There is no third option in the trolley problem. I'm asking you to apply the trolley problem to Schitler.
The trolley problem to Schitler. Yeah, I wouldn't do it then because, again, hold on. Yeah, I wouldn't do it because with Baby Schitler, there's not an argument to be made yet. I have to wait until there's that argument to be made at, right? With the 5, I see that happening now. I have a justification. But with a Baby Schitler, I don't have that argument yet.
You do. Again, we have postmodern knowledge that this is going to happen. The lever is Baby Schitler dies or not.
No, Baby Schitler wouldn't die. Wait till he's an adult.
Okay, well, so that's morally against your own position. That is.
It's not because there's not an argument for Baby Schitler.
That you're not reducing harm to the best of your ability. Your own moral objective argument is that empathy is the decider, and given the lever of Baby Schitler or millions of Jews, you picked Baby Schitler. Your own argument is contradictory.
It's not, because I have a third option.
But you don't. We've agreed already. You do not have the third option.
Oh, sure it is. The third option would be I can inform people saying, hey, this is what's going on, and people could watch him, and then once steps are taken, then they could do things, right? I don't have to pull the problem then.
No, let me explain what you're doing here with the classical trolley problem. What you're saying is there's a third railway that you can switch it to with no people on it, and that doesn't exist. It's 1 or 5.
No, the reason why it's not, hold on, the reason why it's not analogous is because on the trolley problem, I literally only have 2 choices, right? I'm on a set of railroad tracks. I can't go no other direction. But if I'm in a case where I can go and there's baby Shitler and there's other people around that I can go talk to, I can do that. That's why it's not analogous.
That's a retreat and a resupposition of the problem.
Wait, say that one more time.
You've resupposed the problem.
No, I
Okay,
haven't resupposed the problem.
Yeah.
You're just stuck on the trolley. I can't, there's nothing I can do to knock trolley off. It could be the case that if there's other people on the trolley, which is probably not, it's probably going to only be me, I could convince people to throw themselves to one side and tip the trolley over. But if there is nobody else on the trolley, right, then yeah, I'm going to take the one. I'm not going to take out, I'm going to do the thing that causes and reduces the most amount of unnecessary harm. But when it comes to baby Shitler, I'm not on a set of tracks. I am able to go talk to other people and I can say, hey, watch this guy. I can do that.
No, but I have presented to you, and you have already relented into asking and answering the questions here, that you have a single lever. The lever at your disposal when it comes to baby Shitler is he dies as a child or nothing happens, just like with the trolley problem. You keep adding extra elements to it that don't exist in what I'm supposing to you, that make your argument relative and better. So you're not a moral objectivist, you're a moral relativist. That is the all things considered argument. You don't even know basic philosophy, my man. Why are you arguing about this stuff?
I'm just saying, I wouldn't do it.
Okay, you wouldn't do it.
Wait, hold on, real quick. On the track. So this is on the track, and then there is baby Shitler on the track. So
Okay.
if I'm on the track, yeah. So if it is the case that I'm on a track and I have the knowledge that Shitler's going to do it, in this case, no, baby Shitler hasn't done anything. I wouldn't do it.
And you don't see the contradiction in that.
No, because there's not an argument to be made at the time.
I'm never going to get you to see it. There's no point in this conversation continuing. You have a good rest of your day. God bless.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and bring up Truth. John, we're getting to you. You're next, John. How you doing, Truth? All right, Truth is not here. We're going to go ahead and move to TBNR. I'm kidding, John. How you doing, John?
Hey, can you hear me, bro?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. Man, I just wanted, if we could rewind a little bit, get back to the when I tuned in on the first argument I heard you speaking about was the slavery argument.
Yes. And real quick, because I do have other people waiting, 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's not a problem. So I just wanted to,
All right.
as far as the slavery argument goes, God didn't introduce slavery. So I mean, if we're going by the Bible, which I fully believe in, and there's a million reasons why, we'll have to get to that later. But when God created the world, bro, He created it a certain way, without sin, and of course, you know the creation story, how sin entered the world. Once that happened, then yes, you know, slavery became a part of life, you know, in society at that time. And there was different. There was voluntary servitude. You know, in Exodus 21:2, it's like if you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. The 7th year, he shall go free without paying. They had slavery for like poverty relief. You know, people to pay debts. There was different reasons. You know, so like what I'm trying to say is, for one, it didn't even equal modern slavery in the way we think of slavery.
Let me define some things. The argument isn't that God created slavery, right? That's nothing I've ever said.
Right.
It is the case though that during Israelite culture, Well, hold on. It is the case though during Israelite culture. If you've read the Torah, you would know that under Israelite culture, when it came to harvesting, they were not allowed to harvest their entire crops. They had to leave a percentage of it for those to come pick because they couldn't afford food. If there was an Israelite who was like homeless, they didn't have a home, it was on the society to come together and build them a home. Right. So like these ideas of like poverty and stuff like this, like just weren't a thing. They were able to still survive and stuff, right? But there are cases where maybe they spent money, did other things that may have put themselves into trouble, in which for the Israelites and only for the Israelites, they would put themselves into a debt servitude as a result of it. But it is also the case that as a result of this debt servitude, the people that they took loans from, even if they put themselves into a debt servitude to a Gentile, they were never allowed to be abeds, and they were never allowed to be charged interest. However, if a Gentile did put themselves under indentured servitude, under an Israelite, the Israelites could charge them interest. They were allowed to do this.
I mean, there were certain provisions that God made. You know, there was a lot of things protecting slaves. But in the end, like you said earlier in the New Testament, there's nowhere in the New Testament where slavery is condemned or you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember.
Well, real quick, before we move on, it's important to distinguish that chattel slavery existed, that God allows, didn't create, I'm not saying he created, but God allows chattel slavery. He allows it. We can't move on until we get past this point.
Well, I'll say this: he did have, you know, it came into being from human sin, and it got to the point where you had all these different types of slavery. Because you're right, it wasn't just one form of slavery. Some of it was in good, all that. But in the end, by the time you get to the New Testament, I mean, he can't just snap his fingers and everybody just stop. He did create regulations. A lot of them were to protect slaves. A lot of them for different reasons around slavery. By the time you get to the New Testament, it is most definitely condemned. You said it wasn't. There's definitely multiple verses where it is.
What verse is physical slavery condemned?
You have and I mean I just had all of my. I know in 1 Timothy 1:10 it says for the sexually
Keep in mind we're
immoral
talking
men
about
who practice
physical slavery,
homosexuality.
not hold on. We're talking about physical
Well, no,
slavery being condemned.
It gets to that point, then it says enslavers and liars.
Mm-hmm.
It condemns them all. It's in that it's in that verse right there. There's another one where it's
Wait, which verse is
the
it?
one that God pointed earlier. That's 1 Timothy 1:10.
1 Timothy 1:10, because if I remember correctly, 1 Timothy 1:10, if I remember correctly, the word there in Greek, I'll go look up the word, but in Greek,
The Greek is Andrew.
is what?
I can't even pronounce it. I'm looking up as we speak.
Yeah, because if I remember, the word in Greek means like a slave catcher. These are people who go out and they do dirty work, right? They go out and they capture people. They capture free people and bring them in and treat them like they're slaves, right?
To be fair, that Greek word does mean man still, yeah. So you say it was more aligned with the word kidnap. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, and that's not allowed, right? So it's not outlawing slavery as a whole. And you know what? Let's give him some W's for being honest about that. I'm glad he looked it up.
I mean, yeah, I'll always be honest. You know, you're right. I mean,
yeah, I appreciate it.
There is a lot of, and of course, I don't know it all, you know, by hand. And I do it. I mean, I try as much as I can to read the interlinear Bible with Greek words and English words to get as close to possible translation as possible, because I know there's a lot of. But there was one more verse, and I'm trying to look it up now because I don't remember it offhand. You familiar with the book? There's different ways to say his name, but Philemon. Some people say Philemon, I think.
Yeah. So the problem you're going to run into with that is, and I'll go look it up, is one, they don't even know if like Paul wrote it. It's contested whether or not Paul wrote it or if it was written later. But the issue that you're going to run into it as well is if you go and read it, it's not that Paul actually like wants him set free for him to be free. Paul wants him set free so he can work for him. He wants to put him to work and have him go and do work. Right. So when you read it at face value, and I'll bring this up on YouTube or on the screen, you may not be able to see it, but if you go back and watch this on YouTube later on, you'll be able to see it. But what you're going to see, and let me get this timer below the window. What we'll see is, let me see if I can find it right here. So you'll see where in verse 8, for this reason, though I am more than bold enough in Christ to command you to do this right thing. So he says, I'm not going to do this, yet I would rather appeal to you on the basis of love. And I, Paul, do this as an old man and now as a prisoner of Christ Jesus. I'm appealing to you for my child, Onesimus, whose father I have become during my imprisonment. Formerly he was, and this is a big part, formerly he was useless to you, but now he is indeed useful to you and me. I am sending him, that is my own heart, back to you. I want to keep him with me so that he might minister to me in your place during my imprisonment in the gospel. But he doesn't want to do this. So he doesn't necessarily want him to be free. He wants him to be there because Philemon's not present. He's not there. And he's like, look, I want him to serve me and take your place.
Right. Well, listen. I'll just say this: in my worldview as a whole, this is my belief that the real enemy is sin, bro. It's not God. It's at the end of the day, it's not how God wanted it. The whole entire New Testament. There might not be specific verses condemning slavery. You might be right. I still have to look a little more into it. But the whole entire gospel message of the New Testament is everybody's created equal. Everybody has the same rights. Everything, love fixes everything, which is true. And when it comes, the whole problem in this world, bro, is sin, and that's the fact. Every single thing we deal with, all the brokenness of this world, every single thing we deal with, from poverty on to grape, everything, every problem we deal with at the end of the root of it is sin, bro. Drug addiction, and God did not create it that way. He didn't want it to be that way. And I truly believe that Jesus is the way to fix all that. It fixed me. I just got on drugs a year ago. I'm 35. I've been fighting with it my whole life. Tried everything possible. And so I said one prayer one night on my knees. One prayer, one sincere prayer. I've never turned back. It's been a year now, bro. I was stuck for 18 strong years. It's a personal testimony of mine. It's real. It happened to me. It's true experience. And I just do not believe that God created the world that way, bro. And I do not believe he wanted it to be that way. He did create rules and regulations around it. Because that's how
The question
Yeah,
I would have to ask then is like, why did God allow slavery, right? We have cases where he's saying like shellfish, no. Mixed fabric, no. Pork, no. Slavery, yeah, it's okay. I'm okay with it. However, I'm going to put restrictions on it. The Israelites, you guys can be sakirs, you guys can be bond workers, but you can't be slaves. So this is the question that you have to contend with. Why did God allow it?
Yeah, and so it's a fair question. It's not a question that there's a lot of serious Christians who wrestle with the same question. And at the end of the day, I think maybe in a way, he knew that he couldn't just instantaneously, they wouldn't listen. It was already in effect. Sin already had brought it into the world. It was already happening widespread. I can answer that question ultimately. I do believe in my heart, and the whole Bible from beginning to end gets to the point where I just do not believe that's how God created it. I don't think he wanted it to be that way. I mean, there's no point where he initiates it. He's like, hey, all you free people create slaves. Let's do this. Let's hurt people. Let's break people down and take control of their lives against their will. It's not there.
Well, hold on. He does though,
It's a
right?
fair question.
He does though, right? So, well, real quick, in Deuteronomy 20, right? In Deuteronomy 20, and again, I'll get this brought up on the screen so that when you go and watch this later, you can see it. In
Yeah, I
Deuteronomy
can see it. I got it muted on.
Oh, okay. All right. In Deuteronomy
Yeah.
20, it states, when you draw near a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you at forced labor. This is slavery, right? And then it says, verse 12, but if it does not accept your terms of peace and makes war against you, then you shall besiege it, and when the Lord your God gives it into your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword. You may, however, take as your plunder the women, the children, the livestock, and everything else in the town, all its spoils.
Let's see, the Hebrew word is for plum.
Well, let me drop this down so you can read it all in context. And, I'm gonna try something fun. We're gonna change my voice up. I don't know if you guys like my voice now. Let me know. Let's put ones in the chat if you like the voice change.
I'll put a little one for you. So let's see.
Oh no, they're not liking it. I'm getting Mike likes it. Crystal's ear bleeding. All right, we'll change it back. We'll change it back. Chad is like, no to the voice changer. Man, nobody like that.
In Deuteronomy 21:10-14, it says, it's basically God forbidding treating war captives as slaves or commodities. It says, you shall not sell her for money, nor shall you treat her as a slave, because you have humbled him.
Oh yeah. So this is the captive brides, right? So hold on, let's go read the captive brides. What chapter did you say again? Deuteronomy 10-16. Yeah, we'll get this.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 21. No, it's right after. It's Deuteronomy 21:10-14. It's basically protection for the captive women that just took place in.
Oh, let me. So Deuteronomy, you're saying it's Deuteronomy. Give me the verse
21.
again.
10.
Yeah, I thought I was going there.
It's basically saying
Well, hold on.
not
So
abuse them.
if you go read then Deuteronomy 21. So what it says, if we read it. So let me get this brought up on screen. So what it says
It's
is,
basically like,
well, let me finish though. When you go out to war
right.
against your enemies and the Lord your God hands them over to you. So this means they chose the war. They didn't choose peace. They chose war. And the Lord your God hands them over to you, and you take them captive. Suppose you see among the captives a beautiful woman whom you desire and want to marry, and so you bring her home to your house. She shall shave her head, par her nails, right, and discard her captive's garb, and remain in your house a full month, mourning for her father and mother. Now, how important to a woman culturally do you think her hair is?
No, listen, I get what you're saying, but you do see in Deuteronomy 20:10, Israel had they were requested by God to offer peace first. That was what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to first offer peace.
Yeah, and with peace, they were to enslave them. They were to require them to say, hey, anytime we need you for labor, you're coming to do it. You don't have a choice. If we need labor, you're going to come and do it, right? That's slavery. But this is saying the nation said, fuck that. We don't want to be enslaved. We're going to war. And when they win the war, it says they can, all they have to do, if they see a woman that they want, they can capture her, they can shave her head, they'll par her nails so she can't, attack them. They're going to get rid of her clothing. They're going to completely humiliate her and take her culture away from her. and she's going to remain in the house a full month. They're going to be gracious enough while we're humiliating you to say, and this is God's word, and God says you're going to be humiliated, and you're going to mourn your. Hold on real quick. You're going to get a month to mourn your family, but then after that, you may go into her. So whenever the scriptures use may go into her, this is you can go have sex with her. You can go sleep with her and be her husband, because there are two parts to marriage. The first part is paying the dowry, or in this case, it'd be providing a thing that says, hey, she's mine. And then there was the actual sex part of it. Both of those were required for the marriage to be complete. And be her husband, and she shall be your wife. But if you are not satisfied with her, meaning after she's been humiliated, after you've slept with her, if you decide, nah, I don't want her anymore, then you shall set her free, and certainly not sell her for money. You must not treat her as a slave. Why? Because you have dishonored her. So you can't do this because you've dishonored her, right? So this isn't like... This isn't God saying, be merciful to this woman. This is God allowing this after she has been completely humiliated.
These are not innocent people.
Oh, hold on. I don't think anybody, I can't hear you right now. Can you speak up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, can you hear me? I was saying, so this is the prescription for sin, bro. I mean, at the time, and that's God's creator. Hey, he's the creator. These were not innocent people. These were not innocent people by far.
Wait. These hold on. So real quick, and then I'll need to move on because the 15 minutes are up. But hold on. The issue that you're running into is, and I'll get this brought up real quick. So there's an important distinction in here in the scripture. So verse 10 mentions when you draw near a town, right? And this goes all the way to verse 15. Thus you shall treat the towns that are far away from you, which are not of the towns of the nations below you, right? So all of this is one category, and these are just people that they're choosing to go to war against. If you choose to go to war against these people, this is how this is supposed to go. Now we have a change here in verse 16. But as for the towns of the people that the Lord your God has given you as an inheritance. So these are the people that would be argued that are the wicked people. These are the people that are in Israel. These guys are in the promised land. These are the people that shouldn't be there. This is where God says, but as for the towns of the people that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, you must not let anything that breathes remain alive. Indeed, you shall annihilate them. The Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Notice it doesn't say in there the Amorites. Just as the Lord your God has commanded, so that they may not teach you to do the abhorrent things they do for their gods, and thus you sin against the Lord your God. So these are a different group of people. These people can't be slaves. They're to be completely wiped out, eradicated. These are complete G-sides.
Well, I'll just say this real quick, I guess you say you're about to call it. The Amorites, I mean, they were violent warriors. They had child sacrifices. The Hittites,
Hold on. When it comes to a lot of these, there's actually no proof. The Canaanites, there is some evidence that the Canaanites might have done child sacrifices, but as for a lot of these other nations, it's not. There was a mass grave that was found that was once thought to have been for child sacrifice, but as they have discovered more of these sites, they've realized that these actually weren't like sacrificial sites. These were just how they buried children at the time. But there's no evidence that most of these nations actually did child sacrifice. The Canaanites did. There is evidence for the Canaanites, but as for a lot of these other nations, there's no evidence of it, as we found more sites.
I'll just say this and go through Genesis 15:16, and God gave him over 400 years to repent. But I appreciate the chance to debate you, bro.
Hey, I appreciate it too. You've been super respectful. Let's give John D, that's with a capital D, Delta D. Let's give John some massive W's. I appreciate the respect, and I respect the honesty. I respect you going in, actually, other Christians actually doing the homework and looking up the word himself and being willing to admit that it said something other than what he thought it did. I greatly, John, I have a lot of respect for you for that. Thank you so much.
And I'll say this one more thing. I also agree there's a super ton of hypocritical Christians, unfortunately, and that's one of the things that pains my heart the most because there's probably about 85-90% of the population of Christians. So, but all right, bro. Thank you.
John, real quick. Oh, he dropped. I was just going to see if he'd say, fuck you, hypocritical Christians. But he dropped. Can Kratos beat Yahweh? Yeah, I'd say, I don't know. That would be a good fight. Yahweh, God of War. That would be a good fight, I think. Let me check, make sure we don't have any super chats. I just checked a minute ago. I didn't see any, but let me double check real quick before we bring up this next guest. And chat, quick question. Do you prefer it? I want to see yeses in the chat if you agree and no's if you disagree. Do you prefer it if I bring people up over Video Ninja on this account? I know over, is that what we prefer? I think this is easier for me, but I want to do whatever you all think is better because I can very easily just direct even YouTube traffic to use the link. Well, Cowhouse, nobody cares what you think. But let me get ones in chat or yeses in chat if you think it's better, no's in chat if you don't. And we're going to go ahead and bring up TBNR HUDs. I'm just going to call them HUDs. How you doing, HUDs? HUDs, you are live and on the air. All right, he wasn't there. We're going to bring John back up. How you doing, John? Oh, John dropped again. And just so you guys know, John, every time I was going, because I can see their, if they have their camera on, I can see it. Every time I'm like, let's go back to Video Ninja, John was like sitting up there getting ready to go. And then as soon as I'd say somebody else's name, you just see his head drop like, ah. But he was waiting in the box. He's been in the box this entire time. We're going to go ahead and bring Truth. How you doing, Truth?
Hey, man, how's it going?
It's going good. Yourself?
Going all right.
And can I get your age?
25.
And are you a Christian?
I like to say follower of Jesus Christ.
All right, so you're a Sadak Mac. So you're a Sadak Mac bitch tove. I'm okay with that. So why is God a sick fuck?
Oh, how disrespectful. But I don't think he is. What's your evidence for it?
He's okay with unaliving innocent children.
What evidence do you have for that?
Yeah, are you familiar with the story of David and Bathsheba?
I am.
And what happened to the child that David? Huh?
You tell me.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll get it brought up, so we can all read it together. So this is going to be, and I'm sorry if you all just heard me kind of give a little belch. I apologize for that. I don't like, especially if you're wearing earbuds. I don't like doing that in anybody, so I apologize for that. But we'll get this brought up. So we're going to go to 2 Samuel chapter 12. And let me get this
brought. Everybody else went. How about let's start with the Canaanites and the Israelites and let's talk about the same shit.
Oh, no, we're going to talk about something different.
All day.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about this
to do
instead.
With it because everyone else failed to point out the fact that the Canaanites were practicing child sacrificing and incest. And that's why. And so why are you okay with that? And on your
I'm
point
not
about
okay
slavery,
with it.
If the Bible didn't exist, Martin Luther King would have no basis to explain to the white atheists who were racist why racism is wrong. He would have no basis. So
Oh,
why
you
are
think
you
it
okay
was?
with both of those things?
Wait. So yeah, if there's white atheists that are racist, I think they're wrong. They're wrong. But I would say that when we
Why
have
are they
the
wrong? Why are they
because
wrong?
racism is
Why is
not.
racism wrong?
Oh yeah, racism is wrong because it's unempathetic. It's not taking empathy into consideration. It's ignoring a whole side of an argument.
No. We are just
coming
a
from the BIPOC
fucking
community.
made up soup. Random. That's your belief. We're random. We're no different than bugs.
Oh, we are
So why
different.
not
We're social
squash
creatures,
people?
and
In that
Well, hold
world,
on.
it's okay to.
Hold on. I muted you now. Now I'll unmute you. But when I'm talking, you need or I'll just mute you.
Respectful
So
to
it
you.
is
You
the
shut your mouth.
so it is the case that when it comes to our evolutionary track through the bug's evolutionary track, that we're with empathy, and so yeah, just be unempathetic. Racism is just wrong.
Coincidence. No, the reason slavery and racism is wrong is because we're made in God's image.
That's not true.
You are made in God's image.
That's not
I
true.
am made in God's image. That's
That's
why
not
it's
true.
wrong.
That's
the
not true. You'd have to
presupposition,
establish
since
that
you're
God.
stepping into my world, since we're talking about
Mhm.
God, it is true because He is the ultimate judge. He is the ultimate authority. Did you have a dad?
Yeah. God's not my
He
dad,
was your
though.
authority, right? Did you listen to
Well,
your
God,
dad?
hold on. God's okay with slavery, though. God's okay with racism.
No, He's not. No, He's not.
He is. He
Stop
is.
saying that. You
Why did
need
Jesus?
to get off YouTube and take your own
Why did Jesus? I'm gonna unmute you.
advice. You're doing damage to society.
So why did Jesus use a racist epitaph when he referred to a woman as a dog?
Even explain to me where morals come from. Where does empathy come from, buddy?
Yeah, empathy. We've evolved with empathy.
Yeah.
It's
You
transcendental.
can't measure empathy
Good
in
try.
a test tube.
Yes, you can. We
No, you
can
can't.
measure.
No, you
Yeah,
can't.
we can.
No, you can't.
Hold on. You do realize that we can put sensors on the head and we can check the brain, and there are waves that goes off. There's a pathway that lights up when we see things and we start to become empathetic. It lights up.
You can believe that if you want. You've already proven to everyone on this stream that you reach into the shadow realm to get out of arguments that you cannot explain.
Oh,
I
how
know
have I
that
done
I'm here
that?
for no good reason. There's no talking to you. Have a good day. And take a
Oh.
bath.
Take a
You
bath.
look
What do you mean?
grimy.
Oh yeah, I work for Amazon. I come on the live after I get off work.
Oh, absolutely the fuck not. Out of every single brain-rotted reaction TikToker, this has to be the absolute worst. I demand that you crawl back into whatever basement you call home and never come back out. Dirty-ass boy, I bet you leave fingerprints on Oreos. And your voice, good God, it sounds like a cross-faded version of Alvin and the Chipmunks. Don't you dare let me see this shit again.
Based Goku. Let's put W's Goku. And we're gonna bring up Huds. How you doing, Huds?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Oh, we're getting frog. You have frogs in your thing. Oh, you glitched last time. Can I get your age real quick?
I'm 14.
Wait, how old?
14.
Oh, you gotta be at least 18. Your umbilical cord needed to have been severed for at least 18 years. Sheesh. And real quick from Adele. Thank you, Adele, so much for the $5. Let's give Adele and her husband some massive W's. Adele says, "What all can you find for us in the Shadow Realm, Cyber?" I can, you know what? What we can find, and I'll be right back. Oh, did my Let me see something here. We'll go with window. There we go. There we go. We fixed it. We fixed it. I will show you real quick, Adele. I'll be right back. I will show you exactly what we can find in the Shadow Realm. I'll be right back. I'm going there right now. As a matter of fact, while I am doing that, let's tap that screen share. If you're enjoying it, give me some subscriptions. Give me some follows. I'd greatly appreciate it, but I'll be right back.
Plug in, log on, let's break it down. Truth ain't scared to be found. Dogma shakes when questions rise. No more fear, no more lies.
All right, so Adele paid, Adele asked. What I find are hedgehogs. We find hedgehogs in the Shadow Realm. In fact, we find hedgehogs named Shadow in the Shadow Realm. So I'm gonna go put Shadow back in the Shadow Realm. So I'll be right back. But yeah, so that's what we find in the Shadow Realm. We need him here for the debates. Maybe. So here's the issue with hedgehogs, and if you've ever owned a hedgehog, they poop a lot. So that's the issue that you run into with holding them. I've had Shadow for almost 2 months. Shadow is only 12 weeks old. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and bring up Joseph Simmons. Oh, I almost hung up on Joseph. Joseph, how are you doing? Are you there? All right, what I'm going to do, Joseph, come back up. I'm going to drop you real quick. Come back up. And this will probably be the last debate for the night if Joseph comes back. Cowhouse, I've been trying to debate scriptures this whole time. Cowhouse, come to the link. If you want to debate, come to the link. I'm going to wait for this person to come back up. And real quick, if you're a creator here, so if Night, I saw Crystal in here earlier. Taking a quick look at anybody else that might be in here. I'm trying to take a look. But yeah, if you're one of the Deconstruction Junction creators, go over onto YouTube and post Decon Creator and make sure that those that are over on YouTube can also give you a follow on YouTube. All right, Joseph is back. How you doing, Joseph? Are you there? Joseph dropped. We're going to go ahead and bring up Cam. How you doing, Cam? And Cam just dropped. Huds, you are 14. I don't talk to children. Let's see. Hold on. I got something for Cow House. We got something for Cow House. What do we have for Cow House? Oh, this is what Cow House just got.
We only got enough people for a 7-mile spanking machine.
That's what Cow House just got from Mike, from Arizona Mike. Anyways, with that said, we are going to call it a night here. I thank each and every one of you for hanging out with me tonight. I greatly appreciate it. You know what? Somehow, Cowhouse, Timball, and a few others are the same. But we're gonna call it here. Timball, you should have came up before I said I was gonna call it. You know what? We're gonna call it here. Timball, come back up tomorrow night. If you come up tomorrow night, I'll bring you up. As soon as you come up, I'll finish whatever debate I'm on. I'll bring it up. But we're going to call it here for the night. I have work in the morning. But everybody, thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. I will see you all tomorrow night. Go give Reason and Rebellion a follow if you're not already. It's mine and Jaren's podcast. We do that every Thursday night instead of this stream. Go give it a follow. And I will love to see you here tomorrow night. Let me see who is live real quick. Let's go see who we are gonna go raid really fast. Let's see who's live. This is. Let's go raid. Thinker. So it's going to be Growth here. It's going to be Archthinker on YouTube. Let's go give Thinker a raid. When we go in there, put in either Cyber Says Get a Bible or Cyber Raid. Type that in. I would love to see you all tomorrow. I'll see you all over in Thinkers Live. You'll see me bopping in between both TikTok and YouTube because I want to show my presence on both. So you'll see me popping in and out. And with that said, I will see you all tomorrow.
Plug in, log on, let's break it down. Truth ain't scared to be found. Dogma shakes when questions rise. No more fear, no more lies. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Sacred text, twisted views. Time to separate lies from truth. Not here to burn, but here to see what survives when the mind breaks free. Deconstruct, analyze, open hearts, open eyes. If it falls, show.